Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator, and I am doing something I've not done in a long time on my channel. I'm doing an open mic with my friend and debate partner, Mark Reid. Mark, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you for asking, AJ. How are you, mate?
Oh, I'm good. I just wanted to say, congratulations on our debate win the other day.
Well, I don't know if anyone truly won that debate. It was certainly entertaining. The audience won, definitely. But yeah, it was fun, and I really enjoyed partnering up with you. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's sort of like the tagline for that movie, Aliens versus Predator. It's like whoever wins, we all lose.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I feel like I've done a lot of debates like that, to be honest with you. But
Yeah,
I did have a good time.
you've done a lot. You've done a lot more debates than I have, certainly.
I don't know about that. I mean, you like to go, hey, I'm pretty seasoned at debate, but then you look over at T Jump doing like thousands kind of thing, and you go, no, I'm really not in the grand scheme of things. But
Yeah.
um, I do enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to enjoy debating just for the sake of debating,
Oh, for
because
sure.
I mean, if your goal is to make money doing it, like, I mean, that's, I feel like you need to go in for the right reasons because um during uh the debate I did after where I teamed up with Snake was right. I think
Hmm.
near in the Q&A, somebody asked Bubblegum Gun, or the question came up of why he was doing the debate, and he said that he wanted to make the evolutionary atheists look dumb. Basically, that's what he
Yeah.
said, pretty much, and that's definitely why Kent Hovind does it, I think.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
This whole there is a culture of the YouTube let's dunk on the other side debate to put people down and things like that. It's I think that puts you see the people that do that, they put a lot of pressure on themselves to always win, and they never concede anything, and they're just very, very obnoxious, basically just very rude and obnoxious. I got to say that, like I mentioned, T Jump, he was pretty obnoxious in a debate recently, just calling them names and even threatening physical violence, which um, he might something might going on. He might be stressed. He might be something else. But that's not that's not the kind of debate I'm interested in. Actually, that one with Bubbles, that was insane. That was absolutely insane. I cannot believe he is the only person I've ever seen to take the position that dogs weren't descended from wolves. They're completely.
yeah, yep,
I have never seen that before in my life. Yeah,
yeah, man.
sure.
Yeah, and it's funny because you know, our friend John Maddox's logical, plausible popsicle, um, he spends so much time saying, it's not my fault that I laugh at the atheists when I debate them. Their arguments and their positions are so stupid. I can't help but laugh at them. But
Mm,
it's like your debate partner thinks that dogs and wolves aren't related,
yeah.
and you don't hold that position. So
Right. Right.
your debate partner for like half of the debate is making an argument that you don't agree with.
Right. And I've been in that situation before. I can't say I blame him because you more just avoid like remember I did that flat earth debate with Jen, and Jen and I disagree on everything except the shape of the earth basically. So you kind of just have to avoid that thing and say, hey, let's put that aside. But um yeah, I think I mean Maddox is a funny one. He just seems so condescending towards people, just so like you're an idiot if you don't believe what I believe, kind of thing. And that kind of attitude is sort of um, yeah, I never want to go in with that attitude. It just comes across so badly to everybody watching. Like how it looks terrible, because you're just basically saying, hey, there's a whole bunch of people, they believe in God or whatever, they believe in supernatural stuff. They're just idiots and whatever. One thing I did appreciate from Matt Delahunt is the way that he sort of said, these people aren't stupid. They're not, lying to them. So they're just wrong. We can, some of the most smartest people in history have been wrong. Newton believed in alchemy and tried to turn lead into gold. It doesn't mean he was stupid. He just was wrong about this one thing. And I think you've got to remember that. But, obviously people like Maddox have no interest in entertaining that kind of premises. Like, he's got no interest in that.
Well, I just feel like if you cannot say what you're trying to say and ask questions without doing it in an incredibly overcomplicated, convoluted, and confusing way that takes you upwards of 3 or 4 minutes just to ask a question, and then the other person is like, I don't understand what you said, I don't understand what your question is. Maybe it's not that every time this situation happens, which is in every single debate he does, maybe it's not that oh, they didn't understand your argument because they're not educated on the topic. They haven't read as many papers and books as you have, and they're ignorant. Maybe it's the fact that you're not an effective communicator, and your position is not, your argument isn't sound enough to where you can simply state it in a few words or 1 or 2 sentences and have everybody be able to comprehend it. Because if it was a good argument, you'd be able to state it clearly. But the fact that you obfuscate it and couch it in all of this sort of, fancy scientific sounding words that you're either using wrong or don't really mean anything, just shows that maybe your argument is a lot weaker than you'd like to admit. So you're trying to gussy it up with all of these big words that don't do anything but confuse the person who's listening.
Well, people have mentioned on his pauses before, and they're very, very notable. Tons of people have noted the weird pauses he takes while he's asking stuff. Some people said, oh, he's using a script. I don't think so. I kind of think that he's actually just searching for really convoluted words to, and then he sort of stops at, sort of say, oh, do you think that the simulacrum of cell division in the turpitude of the standard of entropy, he's just searching for words. He's just, yeah, big bad mama. I agree. Exactly like a digital code. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Maddox doesn't understand that electronics and biochemistry are different. He doesn't understand that. He thinks they're exactly the same, which is just how he's just latched onto the fact that some biochemists have said, hey, it's remarkably similar to electronics and how code in computer work. And he thinks he can just use a one-for-one comparison. Yeah.
I'm gonna show, and here's something that really bothers me. I'm gonna share my screen, and I was watching this debate between Gutsick Gibbon, Erica, who's a friend of mine.
I love Erica,
and she is an excellent person. She is probably the smartest person I've ever talked to in a one-on-one conversation. And meeting her and getting to hang out with her and Jackson Wheat at Faithless Forum was really awesome, and I'm glad. If anybody wants to see the conversation we had, I did an interview with her, and that video is on my channel. It's called the Faithless Forum Travel Vlog, and it has that plus my whole vlogging of going up there and meeting like Seth Andrews and Aaron Raw and just a bunch of cool people. But I wanted to show this clip from I was watching this debate between Erica and LPP, and it was an excellent debate, but he just strikes me as being very hypocritical because he's constantly interrupting her. But then when he's talking and she says something, he's like, oh no, oh, let me finish, you know? And I found a great example of that, you know, it's very frustrating. So I'm just going to show that real quick. So tell me if you can hear this.
Like 3 or 4 different solutions, all of which seem, in my opinion, again, not a geneticist and not a
okay, so you realize
highly plausible
to overcome many of the issues like the biofunctionality problem, the chirality problem, all that stuff.
I don't know the biofunctionality problem. Explain that.
Hang on, let me finish.
Okay.
These things are overcome in all observed life by enzymes, which account for these factors, like the polypeptide bond not forming correctly, and you have a 50-50 chance each time that it's going to form a correct peptide bond. And in the amino acids, if they don't, you fail. You have to start again, which is why the improbability factor, which is one of them, is in the fact that the likelihood and it being a plausible conclusion that a protein that's 300 or 400 amino acids long, when literally every bond has to be correct to reach the functional protein, and every single time, this is one of among many. It not only does it have to be the correct amino acid, the bond also has to be formed correctly every single time. And
So
once you have to start again. So your whole aspect of the linear fashion, it has to be correct, all of them incorrect at the same time.
Yeah, I'm with you.
There can be no errors. So you're starting from scratch every single time.
Yeah, again, I'm with you.
I'm with you. You made the point of, we're by these alkali vents and such, right? Well, from a chemistry perspective, you have to account for the fact that there's different stages from a temperature perspective. You also have to account.
I really can't stand the way he scoffs when he's talking, the way he like laughs in the middle of a
well, the thing that evolutionists don't understand is that
I can't do it. It's hard to do like that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I feel like he constantly says, instead of simply listening to what somebody's argument is or what their position is, he always says, are you suggesting, or is your argument this? And then he'll go on this long diatribe that is not what the person said. He did this to me a bunch of times. And he puts words in your mouth. He puts words in my mouth in the debate we did. He did it over and over again. He kept accusing me of saying that since he doesn't have a degree that he shouldn't be participating in the debate. When you
didn't say that. I
didn't say that, and Snake was right. Did not say that exactly. No. What all Snake said was that if you're going to challenge the consensus of the relevant experts in the scientific field, which is evolutionary biology, that's the relevant field. If you're going to challenge their consensus about evolution, then you should have either the proper education and credentials or a proper understanding of the topic, because otherwise you risk being an example of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yes.
So all Snake was saying, he was not saying that you shouldn't be able to debate if you shouldn't be able to challenge evolution and debate about evolution if you don't have those diplomas. You shouldn't or he wasn't trying to gatekeep. All he was saying was that you risk making yourself look stupid. It's like, check yourself before you wreck yourself, basically. That's all he said.
Right.
And we saw that on display.
Yeah. And but he took it as, you have no right to even talk about the subject or participate in a debate if you don't have an accredited degree. That's how he took that comment, which is not what either of you said at all. And the way that he says it, it's kind of it's kind of a I don't see that.
I know. I know, but I want to show you how he is again a hypocrite, because he was complaining about this thing he claimed that Snake said, and then later in his debate after show, he specifically requested that I come on, and he basically told me the same thing about, well, if you're not educated in the topic, why are you debating the subject? He basically said that to me, and
Yeah.
like he has all these double standards. Like he's always saying how, oh, these evo atheists, even though a lot of Christians accept evolution, they say that um you know if the consensus, anybody who disagrees with the scientific consensus is automatically wrong,
Right, which is not
and
how it works. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. But then during debates, he's always saying, he'll say his position, and then he says, there are lots of papers about this. There are lots of studies about this. This is agreed on by everyone. Like appealing to there's a consensus that he's right, but when the consensus says he's wrong, then the consensus is bad.
Well, when you look up the papers, they are not what Maddox says they are. He cherry picks, as so many creationists do. He cherry picks certain phrases or sentences or paragraphs from inside of a paper, says it supports his position, and then claims the paper supports him, which it doesn't. It in no way does. All it is him misunderstanding the science and, presuming that he can make these really far-fetched conclusions from a few sort of, because the scientists are honest. They will go through the paper and say, hey, there is a problem with this, or more research is needed on this because we don't understand how this happened, or there seems to be a problem with the amount of mutational load in these circumstances. He'll get it and say, oh, that proves all of evolution false, and this paper supports me on that. It doesn't. It so doesn't. And it might propose 4 or 5 things to say, hey, these are the things that could be there. We need more study on it that could get around it. And he just ignores that part and says, well, that's it. Evolution totally disproved. Sorry, AJ, just quickly want to address, because you said who's Stanley or Terry. We have not managed to figure out which is his first name and which is his last name, because he uses them interchangeably. Is a creationist that he's advocating that the 7-day week was prophesied in the Bible, and because the 7-day week is now ubiquitous throughout the world, it's a universal now, that proves God. And so him and Pat, for some reason, Pat gave him the time to debate the subject, which he was very generous in doing so. But you know Pat Lowinger, right? You know.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, who is a very, very good archaeologist, has masters in archaeology. I'm not sure of his exact degree, but he is very, very reputable guy. He gave him the time to debate, and his thing is that this 7-day week came from God, and Pat's thing is, well, it came from Babylonia, which then came from Sumerian calendar kind of thing. So they had a debate, and it was one of the most intense examples of Dunning-Kruger I have ever seen in my life. Because I've talked to Stanley or Terry or whatever his name was on sort of, was there slavery in the Bible, and he swears black and blue there wasn't. He is absolutely adamant that there wasn't in there, and he's a frustrating guy. I got to say, he will interrupt, and he will laugh and scoff at you, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the debate, Pat sort of said, look, I don't know whether you need help or not, because he sat there and boasted about kicking Pat's butt in a debate that was clearly sort of Pat just laying out the archaeological scholarship for the origin of this week. I mean,
Oh yeah,
Ridiculous.
yeah, it was a truly sort of horrific scene at the end of it, where Terry was just sort of telling everybody how badly he beat Pat and thumping his chest while Pat's sitting there going like, "Man, are you okay?" Anyway, it was a weird one, and yes, I think I think it was a bit odd. Hi, Bree. Bree
Yes.
is in the house.
Yes, we also have Ian Chen in the side chat.
Oh,
and,
hey, Ian.
and Big Bad Mama. So we've got a live one going. Okay, so I'm going to play an exchange when I joined this stream. Now, Big Bad Mama wanted me to join this stream because Maddox wanted me to come on, but I don't really care. But me and Big Bad Mama text, we have fun. They helped me out with some of my videos and scripting and stuff, and they've been very helpful recently. So thank you.
I wish I'd gone to this. I was thinking of dropping in on this one, but I decided against it because Amy was streaming. But I was thinking about dropping in. I wish I had now, but that's okay.
Well, we can see what you think of. Well, see, I joined on the pretense that it would be a casual conversation and not an interrogation by LPP and the other Christians.
Well, I mean, AJ, that's how they run these rooms. That's
right.
That's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that was a lie, but I'm just
yeah.
For
no,
context.
I get you. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that.
But
so AJ, what's your position in that debate that the point that Sal made in relation to the bush versus tree in relation to like proteins?
Well, I'm not sure about proteins, but I have heard
well, that was specifically the point that Sal was making.
Well, what was he asking? Like,
the point he was making was in relation to evolution, that they're seeing, sometimes orchard models used, or the this kind of the bush, I think was the analogy he used, but that there's not this universal common ancestor from a protein perspective, and that they're finding greater and greater amounts of differentiation. It appears to be all these different starting points, right, versus a singular starting point. And obviously, given the fact that proteins are fundamental, if there's all these different starting points, then why would that not be more indicative of the kinds concept versus universal common ancestor?
Okay, can you stop for a second,
I would
AJ?
say because
so with this, like, we know that proteins, de novo proteins evolve. We don't think proteins had a common ancestor. He doesn't understand what he's actually talking about. I talked about this with Dr. Cardinal, and he sort of said, yeah, this isn't a problem for evolution. We know that proteins can, like, new proteins can evolve. We don't think proteins had a common ancestor. Just because the DNA sequence has a common ancestor, or they used to be part of a more primitive ancestor, doesn't mean all of the proteins had a common ancestor. That's ridiculous. It's not a problem for evolution, but for some reason, Sal and Maddox and these people think that it is. Who knows?
Because I've seen this model of the orchard versus a tree of life. It's like the orchards are you have a bunch of individually planted trees that have roots that go down, but the trees don't connect to each other. And I don't know if I agree with that, because we can see based on DNA testing, which would be reflected in these proteins, that there are these connections between individual trees. If you want to talk about, if you want to call like a tree like a species, like usually they talk about
Right, but the point,
like dog kinds.
Right, but the point
yeah.
but the point that Sal made in the debate, and he expressly, and I've watched this with him, but which he expressly referenced in relation to conversations he's had on the topic with Dr. Danny Boy, who agrees with him, and that there is rapidly growing agreement in academia that yes, on the protein family side, it does appear that there is the orchard model, bush model, whatever you use, is evidential, like from an evidence perspective,
just a sec,
looking more and more the case. So
he always says this, there's growing evidence in the thingo that this orchard model. No, there's not. No. There is not. People are not going, oh, well, the creationists were right and there was an orchard model instead of the tree of. No, they're not. Stop saying that, Maddox. They're not.
Well, he's talking specifically about proteins. So I don't think he's saying that the scientists are starting to come around on the orchard model. He's saying for the proteins, they could reflect this model. And I got Dr. Dan to I asked him on Twitter about, I sent him this clip and he sent me a comment. So I'll read that after
Sure.
I play this. But
sure.
let's I'm just gonna play this, and then if we could just hold our comments until just afterwards, because it won't.
Yeah,
it's
sorry.
not
Yeah,
that
my
long.
bad.
No, it'll just be easier that way.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
It's it's basically like my response, and then he's going to basically do the thing I said where he asks me the question that he accused me and Snake of asking him.
Sorry, Maddox makes me mad. I want to respond to him all the time.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying. We'll be pausing every 5 seconds.
Yeah, sure. No worries.
Well, if that's true, I don't know if that means that genetically it still shows that you have an orchard of animals that aren't related to each other genetically, because I think that that's what is shown when you do tests of a genome. And you could even if you want to say that these results are influenced by geneticists who are biased towards evolution, you can plug these same results into a computer and it'll print out trees the same as that have been created by the geneticists. These life forms are connected.
I'm just gonna read something from Big Bad Mama. LPP, come on! You said you're gonna keep it mellow. Yeah,
right now, I think this has been pretty mellow myself. I'm being pretty chill.
I mean, I'll level with you. I don't know shit about proteins. Like, I really, when it comes to these type of debates, like a lot of the stuff that Sal was saying, or the type of questions that Stupid Horror Energy asks, they just go over my head because I don't know the terminology. I personally think that I like to debate about the simpler subjects, because I think in these debates, it's cool if you want to get into the more specific scientific aspects of it, but that would be a better question for somebody like Dr. Dan, because he's got an expertise in that I just don't have. So I like to look at the more broad subjects of the evolution debate.
Okay, it's fair to say, like, that's fine to say that's not my strong area. It's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the your honesty about it. My question to you would be, if per your own admission you don't have the knowledge, then why do you claim that make assertions that somebody like myself doesn't understand it?
I don't
how would you know that a point that I'm making is true or false, or relevant or irrelevant, if you, per your own admission, don't actually know the details yourself?
I think that was more Snake who was saying that than AJ.
Well, I'm saying both of them at this point. Now, in fairness to AJ, it might have just been in the heat of the moment. I get it. Firing comebacks and whatnot. But I mean, I've seen you kind of take those kind of positions before in the past on a variety of things, in other debates. And it's like, so I'm being serious here. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk. Right? I'm not trying to be a jerk. Right? I'm for quick backstory. So from my perspective,
okay,
if I don't have, some pretty fundamental understanding of a concept, I'm not going to enter the arena and have a debate with somebody over it unless I have some general understanding, because I'm not going to know if the argument is being put forth by my opponent. If I don't know what the heck they're talking about, how can I actually have a realistic discussion with them and be a fair interlocutor?
well, I agree with you.
If I don't understand what they're talking about.
That's why I don't enter into debates about genetics specifically, though. But
Yeah,
the broader subject of evolution, though, I think I have enough of an understanding to talk about that.
Yeah, because the debate that what's it called, Eric Sauer and Sal and AJ were on, it was the evolution on trial. It wasn't specifically about genetics of protein.
And hey, I honestly, I just debate and do YouTube for fun. So if I come on here and I make myself look foolish, that's on me. But that's it's a risk I'm willing to take, because I enjoy the argument. I enjoy debating for the sake of debating, and I feel like the way to get better at it and to learn these things is to keep doing it and to be challenged by people who are smarter or who know the topic better than I do, even if they're on the other side of the subject, and I might disagree with them on something. That doesn't mean I automatically think that they're unintelligent. I think somebody like Kent Hovind doesn't understand evolution very well, but that doesn't mean I think everybody who would be on the other side is like that.
That's funny.
Okay. So, you can go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I don't think Maddox particularly understands evolution that well either. I think that he doesn't understand genetics as well as he thinks. He's read up on a lot of stuff, but it's not like he's stupid. I'm not saying he's stupid. I'm not saying he's ignorant. I just think he is in direct contradiction to people that know a lot more than, like, bounds more than either of us. And so that's kind of ironic that he would say something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And what I found is that LPP, he cannot go more than 5 seconds without calling somebody stupid.
Yep.
So when he gets into a interaction, a debate, or an argument, or just sees somebody like me, an atheist, join his stream, he wants me to go in there and be aggressive with him and call him stupid first. That way he can sling mud back at me. And, it's like, like you said, the heat of the moment, firing back, even though Maddox in that Erica debate started condescending to her right when the open discussion started.
Sure.
And he'll do that when it's not the heat of the moment. But what I've noticed is that people like this and people like him and Kent Hovind, if you go in there and you're like, I was just very cordial and I was honest with him, and he really didn't know like how exactly to react to that. You know what I mean? Like you could sort of hear after I told him, like, the part where he said, "Oh, I appreciate your honesty." You could hear after I was done talking, like there was sort of like this long silence where he was kind of like, do I get to call him stupid now, or what do I do? And that, Kent Hovind, when I did my debate with him, I feel like it was the same thing where he got really frustrated because I just wouldn't play his game. Like Big Bad Mom is saying in the chat, like, I'm not trying to play into their hand of getting into an argument because they want to get me riled up and upset, so I start making mistakes. And
well, it's not only that. I think they also want to point to, I look at the angry atheist, right? They've got this stereotype they can give to their audience and say, hey, look at how, and I've even heard it used on panels before. They're like, oh, look how, mad you are and how bad your life must be, kind of thing, because you're an atheist and you don't have the love of God and therefore you're angry, like you see in front of it. and they'll use that and sort of say, hey, that's an example of it. So,
yeah, I mean, look at this angry atheist.
Yeah, I mean, that's the angriest atheist I've ever seen. He even put it in his name. That's how angry he was. I bet he typed out that name really angry. Look, I understand that there are people that have been in religion and they leave religion and they're rightfully very upset, hurt, frustrated. They feel lied to. They feel vulnerable. They feel like something that they relied on for a long time wasn't actually true. And I get that. And I think that that's something that does happen to a lot of people leaving religion. I think we've got to be really understanding about people leaving religion. And yeah, I just think that the way to sort of handle these people is to not stoop to their level. I mean, I remember meeting Jungle Jargon for the first time, and I lost the plot. I was so angry because he basically asked for a one-on-one conversation kind of thing. And I thought, oh, it'll just be me talking to this guy. And Smokey Saint and all of his mates in the background were listening in, and they all came in and, you know, sort of started to gang up on me and stuff. It's a tactic. It's their thing. They want to, you know, just rebuke you. I think that's the word they use. They want to rebuke you. They want to tell you how bad you are for not believing in what they believe. It's a rebuke. You're being rebuked. It frustrates them when you don't care about the rebuke. You know, not like you're saying, oh yes, well I really care. I want to, you know, kind of thing. So this is just my opinion, right? This is just my opinion, what I think. They will give you a rebuke. You're terrible and stupid because you don't believe in right. They give you the rebuke. Now, two responses: either one, you're of the devil and Satan, and you lose the plot and go off and, oh, you're trying to get, you know, the Lord into my immoral whatever, and you go off. The other one is that you know, go, okay, well, no worries, I understand, kind of thing. You submit to their rebuke. But when you just don't care, when you're just sort of like, yeah, I mean, you can say that, go for it. It doesn't worry me. Like, say it again. I don't, you know, you're not submitting to the rebuke. You're not resisting the rebuke. You're just saying, yeah, it rebuke away. Drive yourself nuts rebuking it. Doesn't, how is it going to affect my life?
Yeah.
You know, that's what drives them crazy, because it makes their kind of religious holy rebuke of the bad person mean nothing. It doesn't mean anything. It's who was that guy that blew air at the COVID kind of thing? Patterson? Was that Patterson?
No, that was Kenneth Copeland, I believe.
Copeland, yeah. Just it doesn't mean anything. It's a dude blowing air at you. It doesn't mean anything. But that's just my opinion. You know, that's what I think. That's why I think they get so angry when you don't react. It's because it has to do something, because it means so much to them.
Yeah. How dare you? You basically accused me of doing it there because that's my last name. How could you?
Same thing on the Ewe Dawa show. He only screens atheist live comments and insults them as much as possible while preaching the Quran. Yeah, I've never been on EA Dawa. I wouldn't mind trying, to be honest with you. I know that Amy Newman's been on EA Dawa a few times.
Well, I am pretty excited because this next coming Wednesday, I'm going to be on Vice Rhino's channel. He does a live stream show where he reads stupid tweets from people, and he invited me to come on Twitter.
Well, is he reading your tweets? Like tweets to you?
No, he just finds random tweets from like Greg Locke, or I don't know, maybe like Pastor John Hagee, or just I assume it's random religious people or just really stupid people on Twitter, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And I've seen I've seen the show, 1 or 2 episodes of it. I saw the one when Paula G was on there, and I thought it was really funny. So I think that's pretty exciting.
Oh, that'll be a bit of a change from the debates and the just have some fun, like let's get AJ on Vice Toronto and reading some tweets. Absolutely.
Well, I think it'll be really good for my channel too. Yeah,
absolutely. But I mean, I kind of went through a small phase of going, what's good for my channel? To be honest with you, I'm really just after what's enjoyable for me, where you can be yourself and, enjoy the kind of YouTube experience. I think that people that just chase stuff, and no, you're right. You probably should be doing stuff to grow your channel, but so because I went on Non Sequitur recently, and then I had a whole bunch of people contact me saying, be careful and watch out and all this stuff. Look, I don't know what happened. I have no idea. I am completely ignorant of everything. I'm just going on an occasional show. I'm not committing to anything. I do not want any drama. Drama is just something that I don't want. So it's not a big thing. I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw it as a platform for you to talk to G-Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, basically.
And it's, your channel is you're just starting out, so it's like I really don't see this as something that will have any lasting problems happen from it.
Yeah, and I did, and Steve McRae showed me the video of GCAT. So I've seen the video of GCAT, and it is every bit as funny as he told me at the start. If you haven't seen G-Man and GCAT, that is hilarious. I can confirm GCAT is so funny. But I had fun. I had a lot of fun. I thought it was a fun time. But I certainly... I'm not even sure if I would go on again. It kind of was a bit dramatic at the end, which, I sort of told Steve that, but it's fine. I don't know. And thanks to James Kunz for telling me about it and, being able to appear. But
dramatic at the end?
Yeah, G-Man and some person he knew were having a bit of a argument over some drama that had happened, and it was I didn't follow any of it, to be honest with you. It was just sort of personal stuff that I couldn't follow, didn't really care about, and sort of was beyond me. So I basically just watched two people fight.
Jeez. Well, why don't I read a little bit of, let me see if this will show up on camera. I got this in the mail from the Watchtower Society.
Ooh.
Does God care about you?
Which one?
Is it backwards or?
No, it's beautiful in all of its Watchtower-y glory.
Announcing Jehovah's kingdom. And it came with a handwritten letter.
Ooh.
That I
was it written by God?
No, it was. I mean, I don't think so, but it was written by a human. But I had the envelope here, but I must have left the letter in the other room, and I don't feel like getting it. It was just inviting us. It was inviting my mom to come to church or something like that. So I am gonna read some of this, and I guess we can see.
Please,
see what you think. So the main topic of this is so when tragedies strike, do you ever wonder where was God, or in your own life, has a traumatic event made you question whether God cares about you personally? Perhaps you feel, as did Sheila. That's a weird way to word that sentence.
As did Sheila's the name of the person?
It says, perhaps you feel, as did Sheila, who lives in the United States.
That's a very Australian name, I got to say. Sheila is a very Australian woman's name.
Yeah, I was just saying the way that they like structured that sentence was kind of awkward to read. Perhaps you feel as did Sheila, who lives in the United States.
Is there a comma after the feel?
No, there's a comma after Sheila.
Yeah, so there should be a comma after the feel. Maybe you feel, as did Sheila. There's a pause there that should be there.
I feel like it would hit the ear better if it says, perhaps you feel as Sheila did.
Yeah, that's terrible English structure, though.
Because it's ending with the, well, perhaps you feel as Sheila did, who lives in the United States.
Yeah.
So you're not ending with a participle? Preposition? Don't end sentences with prepositions. Don't end people who are never mind. Okay. Raised in a deeply religious family, she says, from childhood on, I was drawn to God because he is our maker. Maker is capitalized. Yet I never felt close to him. I thought he was watching me, but only from a distance. Okay. I didn't feel that God hated me, but neither did I believe that he cared for me. Why did Sheila have doubts? She explains, my family faced one tragedy after another, and it seemed that God wasn't helping us at all. Like Sheila, you may feel sure that Almighty God exists, yet you may wonder whether he really cares about you. Italicized. The righteous man Job, who had faith in the power and wisdom of the Creator, had similar doubts. After Job was pummeled by one tragedy after another with no relief in sight, he asked God, why do you hide your face and consider me your enemy?
Wait, but God did all those things to him.
Well,
that was the story of Job. No, Satan made the bet with God. God was the one that delivered all that stuff. God didn't have to take Satan's bet.
I'm going to disagree with you, Mark. I'm going to disagree.
Okay. All right.
It's my understanding in the story that Satan came to God and did make a sort of bet, but he said, watch me do all these things to Job, and because I do these things, he will no longer worship you and praise you. He will curse your name. And God says, okay, go ahead. We'll see what happens. And he allows Satan to do those things, is my understanding. Okay.
Are you sure? I thought.
Yeah, look, you can look it up.
Yeah, I will.
Job chapter 2, verse 3, and Job chapter 9, verse 4. The quote is from Job chapter 13. I'm just going to keep reading while you look that up. So what does the Bible say? Is God to blame when tragedy strikes? Is there any evidence that God cares about humans in general and about each one of us individually? On a personal level, can any of us really know whether he notices us, understands us, empathizes with us, or helps us with our problems? I mean, to blame, I mean, it certainly would, he allows it to happen. I mean, maybe he's not to blame for it happening, but he certainly allows tragic things to happen. If he could stop them and doesn't stop them and knew that they were going to happen.
Yeah, well, he obviously knows they're going to happen because he knows the outcome. Well, as long as you have an omniscient God, he knows the outcome of everything that's going to happen. So, yeah. And if that God created the universe and designed the whole thing, then he sort of has it by design for those things to happen.
Yeah, he effectively did make them happen. It was his plan because God has a plan. And that's what they say. It's all part of God's plan, you know, when something terrible happens.
Well, it depends who you're talking to. So if you're talking to a Calvinist, they'll say, hey, yeah, God makes bad things happen, deal with it kind of thing. And, you know, you're not going to get into heaven because you're not chosen by God. And he just doesn't. He's a bit of a dick in Calvinism, basically. But, you know, I don't know what the Jehovah's Witnesses believe, what kind of belief they have on. Because this is the problem of evil, right? This is just straight up the problem of evil that they're trying to address.
Yeah, or the problem of divine hiddenness. But
possibly, yeah, you're right. You are
Yeah.
also right, again, to make me look bad, on the God removed his protection, so the a fallen angel, the angel could do a dirty on old Job.
Yes, several dirties. I mean,
Several dirties, yes.
Job had 10 children, and Satan they were all eating dinner under one roof, and Satan made the building collapse, killing all of them at the same time. And I think one of the absolute cruelest things about the story of Job is that not only did God allow Satan to kill all of Job's kids and his livestock and have his crops get killed, and his house was destroyed. I believe he lost his possessions. For me, the really cruel thing is that Satan struck Job with boils from head to toe, painful boils. So Job was in physical agony as well, which is just so, it's worse than the emotional pain, because then you can't even be comfortable ever. You know what I mean? You're going to be in constant pain, and that just strikes me as so ridiculously cruel. It's just like, it's almost worse than the other things. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of parents would be struck with boils if their children don't die, kind of thing. I think the emotional trauma of losing a child is, and it's weird the way creationists sort of go, well, yeah, but he gave him more children, kind of thing. It's like, yeah, but the other ones were still dead. Like, it doesn't. He didn't bring them back. He gave Job more children, like different children, like not dead children. He didn't actually solve the problem of the kids being dead. He just gave him, replacements.
Okay, so so it comes up, does God notice you? And then there's some examples there where it says what creation teaches us, and it talks about how the first 60 minutes of a baby's life outside the womb is a crucial period of adjustment, because mothers who bond with their newborn babies during this critical time dramatically improve the growth and development of their children. It says, consider, if God created such a complex system to ensure that a human mother will tenderly observe her baby and respond to the infant's needs, does it not seem logical that God also takes a personal interest in us, the children of God? I mean, not all mothers do that. Does it not seem logical? I mean, I guess so. God also created hamsters, which often eat their babies.
Right.
So, okay. Let's see here. Does God understand you? God is very compassionate. Does God have empathy? I think this is the one that we're looking for. So what creation teaches us? Empathy is defined as the ability to share someone else's feelings or experiences by imagining what it would be like in that person's situation. Mental health expert Dr. Rick Hansen states that empathy is in our bones. Consider, why are we endowed with empathy, a quality unmatched in any other species? The Bible explains that God created humankind in his image. We are made in his image of God. We are made in the image of God in that we can reflect his personality and thus display a measure of his fine qualities. Hence, when empathy moves caring people to help others, they mirror the empathy of their compassionate creator, Jehovah God. So the reason that humans have empathy is because of evolution. We evolved as a social species because it made more sense, or it was more beneficial to the survival of our species for us to work together as tribes than to just kill each other and rape the women, you know?
And we're not the only species with empathy. I mean, it says unparalleled in humans, but why give other animals empathy at all? Like, why give? I believe there's a tribe of monkeys. I can't remember which ones they are, but they have a signal, a call, which means that there's predators around, and the scientists have observed them use the call in order to distract the other monkeys to get first pick at the food, kind of thing. Those monkeys are kicked out of the tribe of monkeys. There's a punishment for lying about a predator being around to serve yourself. These aren't sort of confusing things. We see empathy all the time. We see it even across species. When a kid fell into a gorilla's cage, this gorilla mother protected the child, a human child, from all the other gorillas, kept them away until the keepers could come and rescue him. That's empathy at work. We can go, okay, well, how would I feel if I was a young, not my species in this situation? So this whole idea that empathy comes from God is kind of ridiculous, because why give a gorilla empathy at all? It's useful. Right. It's very useful for gorillas to have empathy because they live in a social situation just like we do. It's very useful, but they're just basically hijacking empathy for, to sort of say proof of God. There's no proof that it comes from God, and it's sort of very clearly suggested that it is a social mammals particularly show empathy. And then you have to ask, well, you get sort of psychopaths. Why do psychopaths exist? I mean, we know that they're born without a sense of empathy, but if God gives everybody a sense of empathy, then why is there psychopaths at all?
Mm-hmm. So neural activity associated with empathy has been observed in mice, dogs, and monkeys. Yep. Disrupting such activity disrupts empathic responses. We've also seen that elephants will mourn their dead and feel sad. This research suggests that targeting oxytocin, a hormone underlying empathy, may allow for better treatment of antisocial behavior. Now, so one region of the prefrontal cortex responds actively in an observer mouse in experiments on emotional contagion, notably the left anterior cingulate cortical ACC region. Intriguingly, this region is also where emotional mirror neurons are located. These neurons fire in both the behaving individual and the observer, human or animal. Of course, humans are animals, but that either performs or witnesses the action, including painful reactions of another individual. So they did experiments on mice, and they showed they had basically brain scans or brain imaging that showed that these neurons were firing when a mouse saw another mouse get shocked, or saw that another mouse was scared. They mirrored the emotions. Ultimated Christian, how are you doing? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Please.
Hey, Ultimated Christian. I think it's been a long time since I think you're under a different name last time I saw you. I think you were biblically something. I can't even remember.
I've spoken to you on Germania's stream.
I've debated you in the past.
Yes.
I debated you on Amy Newman's channel on, I believe it was ontological presuppositionalism, I think.
Yes, and I'm happy to debate against you both now.
Germania is a degenerate, not to be trusted. Germania.
That you guys and Ger, I don't know why you're so mean to that poor person. No, Ger, we love Ger. He's one of our absolute favorite people. Though nobody would ever tell him that but me, apparently. So
yeah, I mean, I call him No Brainia, but that's just me.
Fair enough. So we're not really doing debates here, Ultimated. I got to admit, we're not sort of debating, but certainly looking at your input on stuff for sure.
Yeah,
Well, we don't
me and
have to
Mark
debate.
are the tag team world champions of debate currently, of
Apparently.
evolution debate.
Mm.
Weird.
Well, I could just say there's one thing, and then depending
Sure.
on your response. Okay, so
Take as much time as you need.
So I'll be very brief. Biblically, God is ultimate truth by definition, complementing Genesis 1:1. So even before reading the Bible, we know that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, therefore falsifying all other religious texts. Your responses?
Okay, so that's not my definition of God. So when you're looking at definitions, they're descriptive of usages, not prescriptive. Definitions don't give properties to anything. If I define my pen as a hamster, it doesn't give it the properties of being furry and eating stuff. So my definition of God is not what you said.
God, by definition, is ultimate truth. You just
Your
have to accept it.
No,
Our definition?
No, that's your definition. It's not mine.
It is our definition.
I
as-
don't
No,
understand.
it's not mine.
I don't understand why Genesis 1:1 automatically refutes all other religions.
Because there's no reason for God to make us read any other religious texts, as He is infallible, so there are no contradictions in the Bible.
He's infallible, is he?
Your question just presupposed Him, so if you want to ask me questions, just admit that God exists first.
No, that's just a question regarding your claim of God. I'm not saying that he exists. I'm saying, do you know what a internal critique is?
Well, are you aware that your question presupposes our biblical God?
Let's go back. Do you know what an internal critique is?
Yeah, I'm asking you a clarifying question first. So are you
No.
aware? Are you aware that your question presupposes our biblical God?
I didn't mention God in my question, so it can't be clarifying. I said, do you know what an internal critique is?
Your question does. Well, firstly, are you aware? I'll elaborate on this. Your question, are you aware that your question presupposes our biblical God? Because for you to.
Automated. Okay, so I'll just clarify just quickly. You've got to stop using the loaded questions. So you're not might
I was
not be
asking you
aware.
a clarifying question.
No, stop. You might not be aware of yourself doing this, but what you're saying is, are you aware, and then making a statement. Okay, that's not a question. Because
I
it's
was asking you a clarifying question.
No, stop. It's called a loaded question because you're already assuming the answer.
I was asking you a clarifying question.
Saying, are you aware? It's a loaded question. So rephrase it.
It was a clarifying question.
Yep, rephrase it in a way that isn't a loaded question.
It was a clarifying question.
So rephrase it in a way that isn't a loaded question.
So I was asking
Mark,
a clarifying question.
Yeah.
Why don't you just state what an internal critique is?
Okay, so an internal critique is where you assume somebody's claims and worldview are correct for the purposes of reviewing it. So you basically say, hey, I'm going to pretend that Christianity is correct. You have this view of this God. You have this Bible, and I'm going to presume it's all true so I can examine it from within. Does that make sense?
Are you aware that your question to me presupposes our Christological God as his ultimate truth?
I'll wait for a question that's not loaded. Can you rephrase that in a way that's not a loaded question?
Why don't we just say the answer is yes? How about that? For the purposes of the debate, the answer is yes.
Well, the problem with that is it's kind of like, when did you stop beating your dog? Or are you aware that you are beating your dog, right? So the whole idea of a question like that, and the reason why it's a loaded question, is because the answer can only be yes or no, and either one of those presumes the
Right.
truth
I see.
of
I
the
see.
statement, right? So that's why we call it a loaded question. It's considered ultimated an incredibly dishonest way to talk to people.
No, it's
Like,
not. You're committing informal fallacies.
what
So
informal fallacy is that?
you're either setting up a rabbit trail, a strawman argument, or completely disregarding my statements, because questions aren't arguments. An argument is usually a syllogism with two premises and a conclusion. So questions don't defeat my statements that
Well,
God is
perhaps-
ultimate truth.
Perhaps rephrase it in a way that isn't a loaded question. I'm sure you can do that. All you have to do
My
is
statement wasn't a
ask
question,
the
by
question
definition.
without the
Yes, it was.
"Are you aware?" in front of it.
I was referencing my earlier points.
Well, try again, Ultimated. Try again without the "Are you aware?" right? And then it won't probably be a loaded question, and we can see what the question is without the loaded part up front that automatically assumes the answer.
Well, firstly, I would like to have some time to address 2 points here. Firstly, if you ask me clarifying questions in regards to my arguments, then you are committing an informal fallacy, as you're possibly setting up a rabbit trail, a strawman argument, as questions aren't arguments. So just to paraphrase what I was saying is that an argument is usually a syllogism with two premises and a conclusion. So by you asking me questions in regards to my arguments, you are actually presupposing our Christological God, as by definition he is ultimate truth, as meta-ontotheologically he is absolute, eternal, and revelatory.
I see.
So
Yeah. So this is what you get.
that's the first point. So
So I'm not presupposing any God at all. When I ask you clarifying questions, it's an internal critique of your worldview and not a presupposition of the truth.
Internal critiques require presupposition. So for you to
I let you finish. Can you let me finish?
I have to educate you. I'm not trying to be condescending, but I have to educate you.
That's the problem. You really are. You're sort of saying, well, as long as you talk about the concept or the claim that I am bringing forward, you automatically say that it's true. Now, you could do this with literally anything. I could say, hey, let's talk about unicorns. Oh, as soon as you talk about unicorns, they're automatically real, and you're presupposing the truth of what I'm putting forward. It's not a very honest way to behave with people.
So again,
did you hear what I said? Can you just confirm that you heard and understood what I said? Maybe steelman me. What did I tell you just then?
Yeah, a unicorn is a label to a finite being.
No,
so unicorns could exist.
Ultimated, that's not what I said.
That's I was addressing your unicorn claim.
Yeah, so that's not what I actually said. Well, let me ask a question. Does your God want me?
Our God.
Your God want me to believe that he exists?
Well, firstly, it is our God. And
it's yours, but sure. Go ahead.
So rephrase your question again.
Does your God want me to believe that they exist?
Our God does want you to know that he exists because he is love. Therefore, he would reveal himself to everybody, debunking agnosticism and atheism. As if you say you don't believe God exists or you don't know he exists, that contradicts God's nature, because God by definition is love, logically following with him being revelatory. So you are either lying when you say you don't believe in God, or you are ignorant on the definition of God. So what is your definition of God?
I think I would define God. I had a really good one here. As a necessary being with all contingencies dependent on, and includes some manner of influence upon the physical world.
Yeah, that's the Theologist was saying that he is ultimate truth. So we presuppose him for facts. For example, to understand that you are a creature, you reference God as he is ultimate perfection, complementing the creator-creature distinction
No,
theology.
that's not what I said. So if God wants me to know that he exists, and I don't know that he exists because I don't believe in a God, that basically means that your God has failed and your definition of God is not correct because you said he was infallible. Because I don't believe it.
Your response presupposed our Christological God as he is ultimate truth, definitionally, as meta onto theology.
No,
Mark,
I'm not.
I wanted to say something.
Yeah, sorry, AJ, go for it, mate.
So you were saying that your God is going to reveal himself to everybody, but there are tribesmen who live on remote islands that don't know about Christianity or the God of the Bible. I mean, how is that possible?
Well, firstly, it is our God, and even if somebody is not familiar with the Bible / Christianity, they would still know that God exists, and they would know that it is our Christian God indirectly, as the adjective Christian means a loving person. So everybody knows that our loving / Christian God exists, complementing the Bible as God created, which is an expression of love. So you just have to accept it that biblically God exists.
Well, no, I'm going to have to disagree with you there because the word Christian, the etymology of it originally just meant a believer in and a follower of Christ. It was used as a derogatory term by Roman citizens. It doesn't inherently mean somebody who's a nice person. I don't.
That's the noun, but even if you're using an etymology website, that still doesn't get you to an absolute certainty because you can't travel back to the past. So even these etymology websites, they're not absolute. So my statement still remains standing is that biblically God is ultimate truth as referenced in Genesis 1:1. So even before reading the Bible, we know that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, falsifying the Quran and all other religious texts.
Okay, but I'm confused because you seem to just state that these Pacific Islanders that have never seen a Bible, they just already know about God and they know that it's the Christian God. You state that, but you don't substantiate it. You can't demonstrate that. You just declared it.
I can substantiate on it is that there can only be one God by definition. So if some, yes, because
So
God is
what you've done is called a baseless claim. You've just put out a claim. You've got no basis for saying that those islanders believe what you say they believe. And then you've left it at that. It's just an empty, baseless, hollow claim with nothing behind it.
No, I was addressing the earlier person is that there can only be one God by definition, as God is ultimate perfection. So even if there were multiple gods, they would all share the same attributes, which is contradictory. Therefore, there can only be one God by default. So everybody knows, either directly or indirectly, that our Christian God exists. You just have to accept it.
But isn't God a Trinity?
Are you aware that your question presupposes God? So if you want to switch the subject, just admit that God exists?
Yes.
Okay, well then admit
Now
God
answer my
exists
question.
so we can admit that God exists so we can talk about the Trinity.
Sure. He totally exists. Now, isn't God a Trinity?
Well, hang on, that's a bit too vague. Just say that our God of the Bible exists.
Bro, our God of the Bible exists and Jesus lives inside me and I walk with Jehovah. Now answer my question.
Well, firstly, you're not even in his book of life. You're not going to his new kingdom. To address your question, yes, I take the position that Jesus is God. Your response?
Well, I don't know. I don't understand how God can be, there's only one, but he is both God and also his son. That seems like it would be two people
And the Holy Spirit.
and the Holy Spirit.
If you're talking about the here and now, Jesus is God. But if you're talking about when Jesus ministered here on earth, he was God in a different form, complementing modalistic monarchianism. So whilst God was still ultimate, he changed mode to be a finitude Messiah, complementing John 15:13 and John 14:6. So to read out John 14:6, Jesus states, he is the truth, the way, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So God, by definition, is ultimate truth. Jesus is declaring that he is the truth. And then he says, no one comes to the Father. And he doesn't say our Father, he says the Father, implying that no one comes to his godly form through his Jesus form.
Okay.
So there's it's still only one per thing, but it's got three forms. So there's just one. There's not. You don't believe in a trinity at all.
Well, if your question mark presupposes God biblically, so can you repeat the following phrase if you want to switch the subject?
Question mark presuppose. What about a question mark presupposes a God?
You're talking about Jesus / the Trinity, so your question presupposes our Christological God. So if you want to stay on one topic, just repeat the following phrase: our God of the Bible exists.
No, I think it's your God. I don't have a God. What shape
That's just
do you
an
think
assertion.
just as an aside, just quickly, what shape do you think the Earth is?
So you're switching the subject. So if you
Well,
want to
it
switch
was
the
a question
subject,
from the audience. It's just a question from the audience. We can get it over and done with and out of the way. It's just a question from the audience. That's all.
yes. And if I do respond, you have to give me time to expand on it. So
Okay.
the Earth is flat, a cylinder, a thin cylinder, as God sits on a throne and looks down on it without putting aside people upside down. This is supported within Genesis 1:2. So just to paraphrase it quickly, is that God was hovering over the surface of the waters. So that implies that the earth has a face pointing upwards to God's throne. So that addresses that. Yeah.
I mean, you're not wrong that the Bible supports that, but I just wanted to ask something, and then I will allow Mark to go ahead. But you were saying how Genesis 1:1 it negates all other religions because our God, who is an awesome God, he is absolute truth, and his word is the absolute truth. But I'm just wondering, which version of the Bible do you mean when you reference Genesis 1:1, and why are there multiple versions?
Well, I reference the Christian Standard Bible. However, it doesn't matter which translation you read, as Genesis 1:1, from my understanding, is consistent throughout all versions. But all you need is one book stating, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And there are many translations for many reasons. One reason is that in order to claim a copyright to resell again, at least 10% of the context has to be altered. So that's why I stick to Genesis 1:1 as my argument, as the genetic fallacy can be used against me if I bring up different verses. So that should address your question.
Wow. So God's law, God's word, the ultimate truth, can be altered because of copyright law. Interesting. Mark, you can. I'll go on mute if you want to go ahead and ask a question.
Yeah, I was just thinking maybe pin the StreamYard link up the top of the chat too, because it's sort of pretty far back. I don't think I've got that power for some reason. That's okay. So, yeah, it seems like you're obviously sort of presuppositionalist, that you think that your definition of God ontologically makes it what your definition of it is, which is just astounding to me. Why do you think that your definition of God in any way changes the ontology of reality?
Firstly, my clarifying question to your question is that, are you aware that your question presupposes our Christological God?
No, it doesn't, and that's a loaded question.
It does.
No, it doesn't, because I don't like what I'm talking about when I'm saying a God is the concept, not the ontology. So you've got this mixed up where you think that anybody that references anything, it has to exist. Now the problem with that is I could reference the flying spaghetti monster, who's infinitely powerful, infinitely wise, has all the properties that would make it ultimate and the necessary being that every contingency is based upon. I could reference that, and it's a concept, not the god, not the flying spaghetti monster itself. So when I say this God that you're talking about, I'm referencing the concept that you're presenting, not the God itself.
You are referencing the attributes of God. So there are multiple, that's a Gish Gallop. So multiple points here. So
what points? There was only one point.
You brought up the fallacious reasoning of a flying spaghetti monster. You brought up the conception.
Well, I mean, not really fallacious reasoning, but what about it's fallacious? What fallacy am I making?
Is that you are appealing to the actuality of God, as humans can't conceptualize.
No.
Hang
question.
On.
What fallacy am I making? I asked a question, specific question. So basically comparing God with another being, ultimate being, what fallacy am I making?
It's a contradiction in terms that people can't conceptualize ultimate perfection without the assistance of God. So that debunks your claim of...
No. That's a claim that people cannot understand reality without the assistance of God. That's a claim.
I didn't just say that. I didn't say reality.
Well, what did you say? You said something very similar.
I said that, to paraphrase, humans can't conceptualize ultimate perfection, aka God, without revelation from him. So that debunks your claim of conceptions regarding God.
That sounded quite circular.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, so that's a claim that you're making. Humans cannot conceptualize ultimate perfection without a God. That's a claim that you have to demonstrate, and you haven't demonstrated it. Do you understand that?
I have demonstrated that earlier through the creator-creature distinction theology. So I will paraphrase. Yes, I did.
Hello, Randolph. How are you, mate? It's really good to see you. I haven't seen you for ages. Like.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I don't want to interrupt the stream. Keep talking. It's good. It's really good.
Yeah, I'm not sure it'll go anywhere, but yeah, this is sort of the problem with precepts. What you're doing, and I'll name the fallacy you're doing because sort of contradiction in terms wasn't the fallacy that I was making. You just seem to like saying fallacy. The one that you're doing is begging the question. You're including the answer in with the premises. So you're basically saying God is required to conceptualize ultimate perfection, correct? That would be the start of your syllogism, right?
Yes.
Right? So your syllogism, the conclusion is there is a God, but God is already in the premises. You've already concluded that before you come to the conclusion. That's called begging the question.
It's not, because God is ultimate truth. So for us to know that he exists, he has to reveal himself to us.
So give me the syllogism.
Okay, so to present a syllogism, premise 1, tautologically, our biblical Christian God is ultimate truth. Premise 2,
right there. Hold it right there. What's the conclusion?
the conclusion is therefore biblical Christian presuppositionalism is true.
Yep. So you're trying to prove that God is true, with God being in the first premises already.
Not
You have presupposed
entirely.
God.
The conclusion, the argument, the topic is for the syllogism is proving biblical Christian presuppositionalism.
Yes, but it's dependent on God, right?
It has to be.
Right, of course it is. So the God's already presupposed to be correct and real in the first premises. So you are begging the question. You haven't demonstrated
your response actually presupposes our Christian God.
Oh, it really doesn't. It presupposes your use of a concept that's called God, but it doesn't presuppose a God. I think you're very confused. That you think that because somebody refers to the concept you are using, like someone says, "Okay, you're talking about this God," that for some reason you think erroneously that they believe and are acknowledging a God in ontological reality, that something actually exists with these attributes, which is not the case.
Your response presupposes our Christological God as meta-ontotheologically, he is omnitude, ethereal, and infinitude in sight. You're interrupting.
Think that means anything. Yeah, I don't. I'd like you to address what I said, not just sort of make more claims.
I'm not making a mere claim. I'm referencing ultimate truth, as you did too, and I'm pointing out your presupposition verbally, as you know God exists innately.
I never referenced ultimate truth. I referenced a God.
You did.
No. But my definition of God isn't the same as yours, because I don't think God is ultimate truth. I think it's a necessary beings with all contingency depending on it that has some sort of influence over reality.
Mark, sorry.
Can I?
He just stated that you know God exists. Did you want to address that?
No, I've addressed it multiple times. He doesn't. Oh. He thinks we're all lying when we say that God doesn't exist.
Mark, if I could just say something in fairness, I think I could be wrong, but I think you might be understanding what he's saying. So when he says that because your question is presupposing that God exists, and when you say something to him, you're presupposing God exists because he's the truth. I think what he's saying is that since God is the ultimate foundational truth, that you cannot use logic to ask a question or to make a logical argument without presupposing that God exists, because to make those arguments or to ask those questions, God would have to exist to grant you that ability. Now, is that wrong, ultimate Christian, or is that what you're saying?
I would agree with that, yes.
Okay.
Just wanted to clarify that.
But you've
so you just have to accept it, Mark. You know God exists, as you have been made known of his attributes.
So that's still begging the question, because you're still begging the question that God is the necessary foundation for so on and so forth. What I would like you to do is demonstrate a God exists without begging the question, like assuming he exists and presupposing he exists before even getting into the discussion.
You haven't refuted premise 1 of my syllogism. So to reiterate, premise 1,
it's begging.
That's just an assertion.
No.
Made an awful lot of assertions.
It's a logical fallacy. It's very.
Assertion.
It's not an assertion. It's just simply logic. It's like you could use that for literally anything. I could say my coffee mug is the ultimate perfection and the only way that you can understand or make sense of things rationally or logically. As long as that's
you're misrepresenting the definition of ultimate perfection.
no, as long as that's in the premises, the others could follow and it would be just as valid. But you are begging the question.
I am not, as for us to be talking about God or presenting an argument for his existence, we obviously have to presuppose him as he has revealed himself to us, supporting my earlier point that we cannot conceptualize ultimate perfection without general revelation. On the contrary, there's no argument against God because you have to presuppose him.
See, that's an assertion, right? That's
What was an assertion?
That you have to presuppose God and you have to know this ultimate perfection in order to make any kind of argument.
I agree. It's an assertion that we can't understand perfection without all this, and I some evidence of that as well. I'm not on board with it.
The evidence is that you are imperfect, so you have to reference God as he is ultimate perfection. So
Why
you
is
are
that
not
relevant?
perfect.
Why is it relevant? It doesn't matter whether or not I'm perfect to recognize and appreciate perfection. Why, if something that's perfect cannot be recognized and understood and appreciated by some imperfect, then I would argue that it's reasonable to assume that that perfect thing is therefore not perfect.
For you to understand that you are not ultimate perfection, you have to reference God as he is ultimate perfection.
I don't claim to be ultimate perfection.
Yeah, and you know that because you are referencing your ontology to God's ontology.
No, I'm assuming that about myself. Not because of God or anything, just because of the way my own life has gone. I've not always made the best decisions in my life. Therefore, I'm not perfect.
Yes, and for you to know that you are imperfect, you reference God as he is ultimate perfection.
There's nothing to do with God. I've never believed in God. In fact, I came up with some of this kind of partial understanding of this before I even knew the concept of God in my life. So it therefore has nothing to do with God.
Again, for you to identify that you are a creature, you presuppose God as he is ultimate truth. Yes, you do.
I'd like to ask a question whenever you're done, Randall.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
Okay,
Randall can talk to him more.
He's just making a lot of claims about how I think.
Right.
Which are incorrect.
No, it is correct.
Well, unfortunately, Ultimate here thinks that he knows what you think better than you do because his Bible has told him that, which is sort of a very, very easy to dispute claim, but for some reason he's all in on it.
Not with every aspect of your life. So you're making a claim. So I know that you know that God exists.
And that's why I don't believe you.
I don't know that.
Hold on, Mark.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So my question to you is it possible for an omniscient and omnipotent God to give me certain knowledge?
Yes, you too know that God exists. You admitted to that earlier.
But can you answer my question?
Yes, I did answer your question.
So your answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm a fallible being, but I can know something with certain perfect knowledge?
Yeah, so this is where you have to have faith that we know that God is eternal and omniscient without fully understanding his attributes. God wants that from us. He loves that we have faith. But we will come to an understanding of who he is for those who are in his new kingdom.
Okay. Well, let me maybe throw a curveball. Earlier, you said basically that God is love. I guess that would imply that God is loving. But we see in the Old Testament, specifically in 1 Samuel 15, that God ordered King Samuel to kill all of the Amalekites, including their babies and all of their livestock. That doesn't seem very loving to me. So I'm
Well,
confused.
are you aware that your response is a straw man argument, as you are presupposing God? So you're actually committing the fallacy of megalomania, as you are not in the position to judge God's actions.
I didn't say that I was. I don't see how it's a straw man when it literally is something that happened in the Bible. It's in that chapter.
And not only is it a straw man argument, but it's the genetic fallacy as well, as you don't have the original source of the Bible. So you may be misrepresenting that chapter. And
Do you have
So
the
I
original?
thought you said the Bible was the ultimate truth.
yeah, because of Genesis 1:1.
But how do you know
So
that
I
that's
know that
but
the
you don't
main
have the original
themes.
translation of Genesis, do you? You don't have the Dead Sea Scrolls. They were incomplete.
What I was going to say is that
Sorry.
we know of the main themes. So I know of the main themes of the Bible to be true. So that God is immaterial. He created the universe. He came down to us as a Messiah, and he set rules down, complementing the Matthew 22, verse 36 to 40. So that's all. That's the fundamental aspects of the Bible. We know that are absolute true. So if you bring up
how do you know
slavery or
Religion is backstage, by the way.
Really, I don't see them. Well, okay. I just want to make another comment, and I feel like Mark is itching to get back in here. So,
No, it's like-
I didn't say that I was trying to judge God, or that I was like, in a position to judge him. I was just saying that when I read that chapter, it's confusing to me when I hear Christians say that God is love, because you wouldn't intentionally hurt somebody that you love. And so it's very confusing to me that God would order what was a genocide of the Amalekites. And he was actually angry with King Solomon because King Solomon didn't kill all of the livestock. He spared some of them because he wanted to keep them for himself. And God was angry with him that he didn't kill more people and more animals. So I'm just confused. I'm just saying I find the situation confusing. Not that I'm omnipotent, or that I am in a moral position above God and that I'm judging him. I'm just saying that I find that to be in conflict with what you're saying.
well, again, because you are committing fallacies here, your arguments has been debunked to a complaint. Complaints aren't arguments against our Christian God, as you have to presuppose him, as you have admitted earlier that he exists. So what is the point of your response to me? What are you trying to get across here?
I'm saying, and you don't get to use your are you aware that you're presupposing God, because I already said that I agree that God exists. Okay, so I think God exists, but you're saying God is loving, and that doesn't make any sense because God is murderous and ordered genocide, and you can't really explain that. You just accuse me of committing fallacies and say it's been debunked.
Well, hang on. You said that our God of the Bible exists, and now you're complaining about him. So that's why I asked you, what is the
So?
point of your response?
I'm not allowed to complain about him?
Yeah, I mean, you can, but like, what is the point of complaining about him? That's the fallacy of megalomania, as you are not in the position to judge his actions. Because
I'm
by
judging
definition,
your argument for being bad.
no, because God, by definition, is ultimate perfection, regardless of what happens in reality, complementing perfect being theology. So you just have to accept it, that no matter what you do or what he does, he will always be ultimate perfection.
Okay, so even if God murdered your entire family tomorrow, you would still just accept him as being ultimate and as being love, even if he did that. Okay. Well, hello,
Well, you
Liz
may be
B.
misrepresenting murder and killing.
Oh, it's very loving,
Possibly.
Kieran. It's very
Ow.
loving. And
Am I being heard?
Pretty simple. Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
good.
I can hear you.
I just wanted to make one point. Most of what he's doing is conflating presupposing that God exists in reality and presupposing that God exists for the sake of the question, which are two very different things.
I agree.
No,
Yep.
because God is
And
active
also, I don't know
spirit.
if you know, but modalism's an early heresy that was condemned by all the church councils. So your name is not really accurate, is it?
No, that's just a universal claim. So, again, for us to be talking about him, about God, we presuppose his revelation to us as, again, we cannot
Yeah, for the sake of the
conceptualize-
question.
No, it's for...
Yep. That's exactly what it is.
It's in regards to the revelation of God. So again, because you've joined, you may have missed what I said earlier, is that
No,
we
I know
cannot
exactly
concept-
what you said. I know the game you're playing.
think
I've heard it
I'm playing
before
a
from
game.
other people like Sci10.
Liz,
I'm not playing a game, I'm
can you-
speaking the truth.
You're a little close to your mic, Liz.
Yeah,
but-
it's up my. I've always been weird with mics. Is this better?
Well, yes, that is better.
Okay,
That's
I'll
better.
keep it at this distance.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, you can't just define something into existence.
I'm not.
You really are.
Please stop bearing false witness, as that's sinful. So
Oh, you're the
because
heretic.
God has... No, again, I'm not. So you're bearing
Yeah.
false witness.
Yeah, modalism's a heresy.
So-
Sorry.
Yeah, apparently.
No.
Wow, that's interesting.
Condemned by all the early church councils.
So you're not all-knowing to be making
never
these
claimed to be.
claims about me. I would appreciate it.
I don't
if you
have to be all
refrain
knowing.
from
I just have to go by what you
slanderous
said.
comments. You're making slanderous comments to impugn my perfect character. I am an ultimated
Oh, your
Christian.
character
I am
is
God's,
perfect
I am
now.
God's, I am God's
Wow.
favorite person. I'm God's
Holy
favorite
cow, I've
person.
never
As
met
he,
a perfect person before.
You are definitely the largest ego.
no, God
I think
is
you've out
touching
egoed
the side
Sci10,
of
and
my
that takes
head.
something.
I
This is
wanna
what
ask-
precept does to people.
I want to ask a question. Have you had intimate relations with God?
Well, I'm happy to address your question. Just admit that God exists first. If you want to switch the
I don't
subject.
have to do that. Just answer my question.
Well, my clarifying question to you is, are you aware that you are presupposing our biblical God? So just
Yeah, for the
admit
sake of the
that he
question.
exists.
See, Mark, this is why I just did it so we could just move on. I just said, okay, go ahead, so he'll stop saying that. That's why I just said, okay,
Yeah.
fine.
I really don't want to take a position that I don't honestly believe. I don't see why I should do
Well,
that.
it's
But
for the
you are
sake of the
lying.
question.
But
He's
it's an
doing the same
internal
thing
review.
again.
It's an internal review, Mark. Not the same thing.
For you to do an internal critique of God, you have to presuppose him. As
Which I
he
did.
Hmm.
Okay, I presuppose him for the sake of this question. Now, just answer the question.
Well, hang on. Just admit, say out loud that our God of the Bible exists.
He just did.
That's actually not necessary.
That's not
It
necessary.
is. So it is for me to
That's not necessary.
drop my
No,
debate mentality.
You're trying
God knows the heart. Okay. You don't have to
So
say it out loud
we're-
because he knows in your heart if you accept him.
To require somebody make a statement that they don't actually agree with, to go forward with something sounds like very much like you're wanting people to start off with a lie, and then
It's
that
not a
makes it
lie.
bad faith. That makes it bad faith arguments. That's what
Yeah.
they're essentially promoting.
And you said that Mark already knows that God exists. So why are you asking him to say it out loud if by your own argument, he already knows that God exists and already accepts that God exists? He shouldn't have to admit it out
Well,
loud.
see, this confuses me because I don't know why he has to convince anybody at all, because he already claims that everybody knows and believes that God exists. So why
That's
is
what I'm
he
saying.
on the internet to try to convince anybody in the first place?
I don't
pointing
know.
out that you are lying.
Just 1 second. I'll just finish. Which leads me to believe that he doesn't actually think that everybody knows and believes that God exists. That's why he's
I
trying
do
to.
know.
Then
What's
why?
the point of your channel?
Yeah. What's the point?
It's to express the awesomeness of our Heavenly Father, which we know within our souls, but not everybody can do that in words.
So you express the awesomeness with word games and false accusations. That sounds great.
Yeah. And
Actually,
hold
a God who wants to order a father to kill his own son, or to order the killing of anybody who doesn't believe, is to me far from awesome. Not even.
Love.
That's
Not
vicarious redemption. God is Jesus, as John 15:13 states, to paraphrase it, there's no greater love to die for your friends. So with that, Jesus is God.
Vicarious redemption doesn't make things right.
You know, I have another interesting
It
question.
doesn't change the history. The history's still there.
You possibly missed the point, is that there is no greater love to die for your friends, therefore Jesus is God, which complements John 15:13.
There is a greater love. I have love for my family, love for my kids and my wife. That is much greater than what you just cited, in my view.
And your country.
You just presupposed our Christian God.
For
No,
the
I
sake of the
didn't.
argument, yeah.
Yes, you did.
Why don't
No, I
we make
didn't.
this really? Why don't we
You
make this
did.
really spicy though? So, Leviticus 18 says that you should not lie with a man as you would with a woman because it's an abomination, and the Bible says that homosexuals should be stoned. Do you agree with that?
So my clarifying question, are you complaining about our Christian God again?
No, I'm asking you. I'm stating what the Bible literally says, and I'm asking, do you agree with that statement?
You have to clarify your question. Are you complaining about our Christian God?
No,
he's
I'm not complaining. I read the verse, and I said what the Bible says about homosexuals, and I'm asking, do you agree with its prescription that homosexuals should be stoned? Because the Bible says their blood will be on their hands, meaning it's their own fault, and their punishment will be on their own head.
Their blood.
Those laws don't apply here today. We are to live by the two greatest commandments. So Jesus does declare that he is the law, and
But it was right back then.
Okay, so
That
it's
was
not the
number-
10 Commandments. We can wipe out 8 of them at least, is what you're saying. So we can disregard 8 of the 10 Commandments.
no, I'm saying that all the laws hang on the two greatest commandments. But if you're referencing Leviticus, then those were a covenant from God to the people at that time. So if somebody was a homosexual back then they would most likely was an evil person.
I'm trying to understand the
Wow.
math here, because my understanding.
He's
all
arguing moral
Christian
relativism.
commandments, and you just said there's only 2 that need to be taken care of. That's 8 less than the 10. Is my math wrong?
And Matthew 5:18, Jesus said that he came to uphold the law, not to change it, not one jot or tittle be changed.
He said fulfill
the
Yeah.
law.
And love your neighbor as yourself is not one of the commandments.
Which is an unethical commandment anyway, if it was a commandment.
That's referenced in Deuteronomy. So Moses even references the greatest commandments, but your responses all presuppose our Christian God. So if you want to talk about the Bible, I'm more than happy to do so, but you just have to admit that God exists first biblically, so we could stay on one subject.
Sweetie, nobody's going to give you the trophy at the starting line. It doesn't work that way.
I have criticisms of Sauron from Lord of the Rings, and I don't believe that Sauron exists, and I don't know that Sauron exists. I'm not presupposing that Sauron exists, and yet I can still critique Sauron.
I'm just wondering why you said that if somebody was a homosexual in the Old Testament, then they were probably an evil person. I'm just wondering what your logic is for that.
So to paraphrase, because God is all-knowing, there's obviously a reason why he allowed people to die by rocks as homosexuals at that time, because of the high context living area. A homosexual back then was most likely an evil person.
Okay, so homosexuals were evil until Jesus came along, and that's when the good homosexuals started being born.
I didn't hear what you said because of the what back then. I didn't hear what that
high
was.
Context living area where everyone was suspicious of each other.
Yeah, I've heard praise go on about this.
High context.
Yeah, if your neighbors are paranoid, that means you're evil, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So homosexuals today, you don't have to stone them. You can, but back then it was very serious. If somebody was
evil
homosexual,
now? Maybe you can finish that sentence. You said you don't have to stone them. You could. What were you going to say?
No, I don't remember. I just said no. You don't stone homosexuals today.
What do you do with them then?
Have a smart brunch.
Well, I haven't come across one recently, so I'm more evangelizing online to engage in people in public. But your response actually presupposed our Christian God. So if you want to ask questions about me, just admit that God exists first, biblically.
No, you're asking me to lie. I won't do that.
Why? Are you God?
I'm not asking you to lie. You already know God exists. However,
no, I don't.
Therefore, yes, you do. As you are finite.
Well, if you know He knows it, you don't need Him to say it.
That's what I'm saying.
Please do not make false claims about what I do or do not know.
I'm not making a false claim. You know that our God of the Bible exists.
I told you I don't know.
You know that Allah exists.
Yes.
Ultimated Christian, I have a question. Do you think the homosexual act or gay sex from whoever is moral, immoral, or amoral?
Your question presupposed our Christian God. Are you aware of that? So just admit that God exists first.
Not at all. I didn't mention anything to do with any divinity or anything to do with the Bible. I just said, is homosexuality, in your view, amoral, immoral, or moral? That's it. Nothing in there about.
Are you aware that your question presupposes our Christian?
The only way it could do that is if you think you're God.
Yeah. So in order, so are you basically saying that me saying anything at all presupposes you're God? Is that your stance?
I think I'm lagging. Is Mark lagging or is it me?
I'm not.
I think it was you, but I
you were more than lagging.
Do you want me to repeat my question?
Yeah, just repeat the question.
So do you think that me saying anything at all presupposes your God?
Our God, yes.
So because, so I get where he's coming from. So because rationality and intelligibility, he presupposes they come from a God, then any thought at all presupposes a God. It's kind of one of the most ridiculous positions I've ever heard in my life.
It's not. We all presuppose God as he is ultimate truth by definition, as meta-ontologically he is absolute, eternal, and revelatory.
But you can't define something into existence.
Hey, Mark, will you look at your Discord?
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry, buddy.
So allow me to get this point across, as Mark has interrupted me multiple times, as I'm pointing out his presupposition of our Christian God. So our Christian God is ultimate truth by definition, as he is absolute, eternal, and revelatory. So information is a synonym for God's mind, as information is too absolute, eternal, and revelatory. So to bring this forward is that for a particular to be eternal has to be all-knowing, to be the sustainer of themselves. As to be omnipotent, you have to be omniscient. So only God has the necessary attributes to be eternal, which he has revealed to us all.
If God exists.
That's a contradiction in terms, because God is
No, it's
love.
not.
He would reveal himself to everybody. So it's
No,
not
it's
a
not.
matter of
He
if.
exists.
No, it's not
Yeah,
a
he
contradiction.
just
It's conditional.
lovingly orders genocide.
Hang on, there's too many points. So to address the first point is that
Why, you're all going to address
Because-
them with the same answer anyway.
no, because I have to repeat myself as you are
No,
either
you don't.
misrepresenting.
Have an
the-
argument.
No, you
I
don't.
do.
You
God, this
really
is
don't.
a gateism. So God is love. Therefore, he would reveal himself to everybody. So if you say that you don't believe in him, you are contradicting yourself, as God is revelatory by definition.
If
So
he
what is
exists.
love?
That's a contradiction.
The
What is
problem
love?
the problem here is, ultimated Christians, that we've got to make an evaluation of your credibility of what you're saying to us based upon the facts that you're presenting, and you're presenting something that is clearly and utterly untrue, that he has revealed himself to
It is
us.
true.
For we do not believe you because your credibility is
Do
not
believe me.
at this point.
This guy is doing the worst Jedi mind trick ever.
It's like I feel like he's gaslighting me. You know, like you do believe me even though you're saying
It's
you
too
don't.
silly to be gaslighting.
You're right.
You
It
know,
is absolutely right, Liz.
Ultimate Christian, you owe me $50, and you know that is true. That is ultimate truth. You owe me $50, and you know that.
These are
hang
not
on, Mark.
the words you're
Mark
looking
just used the word
for. They're not
absolutely.
the
So,
atheists you're looking for.
I'm sorry. But
Yeah, that was about time.
He was a broken record.
Yep, sure was.
No, he was not a broken record, and you know that.
You're presupposing the existence of an ultimate record.
I don't know why all those sentences went up like this
Look,
in the middle of.
I got to apologize for my country producing these people. You know,
Oh,
Ken
please,
Ham-
we're American. I think Atheist Junior is American. I'm American. Look at the people we produce.
I'm Canadian.
I'm not
Oh,
American.
that's
I'm a Texan.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Case in point, the people we produce.
I can almost guarantee you this guy's from Queensland. I can almost guarantee it. Like, seriously. And that's about as spicy as I'll get on Australia.
Mark, is it because of his accent or some other reason you think that?
No. Look, Queensland is the Florida of Australia. All right. It really
okay.
is. Anytime
Right.
somebody does something incredibly stupid involving, almost a Darwin Award, then it'll be Queensland.
That's like your Florida.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So basically, we've shown that precept is just a way of shutting your brain off.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting though. I mean, that is, as much as I want to say it's the most ridiculous argument in life, it is kind of on the cutting edge of what Darth Dawkins and I think somebody mentioned Saiten Bruggencate as well.
Yeah.
He's clumsier, but it's essentially the same argument.
I'm convinced Saiten's a clinical sociopath.
This guy's just a jerk.
I haven't seen that much of him. I saw that debate between him and Matt Delahunty where it was a waste of time. And I think I saw one where he went up to, I think it was Penn Jillette, and tried to debate him on the street. And it was just like, what are you?
He gets very, very angry when he can't control the conversation.
Modern day
know
me on to debate Saiten Bruggencate, and then he canceled, and a week and a half later there's the big news announcement that he's ducking out of all of this stuff. And that's why he canceled. I was so disappointed. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Did you know that that debate with Matt Dillahunty, after it was over, the debate organizers asked Saiten Bruggencate to take a picture with them and Matt Dillahunty, and he refused?
Wow.
That's terrible.
That's very petty.
And yet it was just on video. And yeah, Eric Hovind tried to sell DVDs about it. He was hawking them on his Facebook page, right? Just put a comment saying, "Here's the link to YouTube. You can watch it free." Eric kicked me off eventually.
So,
of course, the irony is, ultimated Christian was a heretic. Modalism is a heresy.
Right.
I just feel like, he has his answer that was a get out of jail free card, and I just thought it was kind of funny that even after I like capitulated to him, where I told him, okay, yeah, God exists, I'll even say it out loud, he still was giving me that same response. Like,
Yeah,
dude,
well,
I
they
already
don't have. It's not about thinking. It's just stock responses you memorize.
Yeah, I already did that. Like, I said, okay, God exists. Now answer my question. Because I don't care. Like, we both know that I don't actually mean it, and it's like I said, why are you demanding that people say it if we already know it? Are you recording this to make a clip show of atheists admitting that they're actually theists to put on
That's what
YouTube?
And
That's the impression I got.
you could say it in the most sarcastic tone possible, and he wouldn't be able to call you out on it because he has to believe that you believe it.
Yeah, he just asked you to say it.
Yeah.
Well,
That's too bad. You booted him before I could ask him. Since most of the church rejects modalism, does that mean we don't know God, or do we secretly know God is a modalist God and reject that, pretend to reject that?
So the church is all lying. Yeah, I had a debate with this guy, and it was actually it was frustrating at the time, but it's actually funny to watch because he said biblically like 50 bazillion times before everything. The funniest thing was when he said biblically, I'm not clarifying questions are not defeaters to our God, kind of thing. like what's that got to do with the Bible? It was an experience. He's very special.
He reminds me of somebody who gets on the Atheist Experience show a few times over the years, and he's got a Scottish accent. You know the one I mean? And there's one Matt said at near the end of the call. He said, "I don't believe you're a real caller." I think he means I don't believe you're really taking this position, but.
I don't know. He's a weird one because I know on Amy's stream he's admitted to having a sexual relationship with God, and even on here he said he was God's favorite person. So I kind of really worry about him a little bit, but he does get himself into these situations. So
yeah, that sounds like red flag territory to me.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing he was born after Jesus, so he can be a non-evil gay with God.
Oh, interesting point. I hadn't even thought of that. Probably because I don't think of homosexuality as abnormal.
Yeah, but apparently gay people are all evil back then, and I guess not anymore.
It depends. A lot of evangelicals still think they're evil.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter what. Well, no, everybody agrees with UC. We just pretend we don't. So remember that.
Such a weird. I couldn't, and I do realize. I want to say this as well. Some atheists do go, "Oh, they don't really believe that kind of thing, and they're just lying." I kind of
rarely hear that. I haven't heard that very often. But yeah, I know what happens.
Yeah, I've even said this to people. Like, if you just believe that I'm lying, and I just believe that you're lying, where does that get us? Like, what do we end up doing? We can't have a conversation. We can't discuss things if I think you're just pretending to believe in God, and you're just thinking that I'm pretending not to believe in God. You know, it's
shutting down conversation.
Yeah. What's the point in talking at that point?
Well, I think precept is for people whose faith is basically on their last legs. They can't figure it out anyway. So it's just like, give me the first place trophy, or I won't run the race.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. You know, all of these. We were looking at Maddox earlier. They never are defending Christianity on their streams and their debates and stuff. It's all evolution and morality and all of this kind of stuff. They never really seem to be wanting to defend their worldview anymore.
Well, that's because their worldview doesn't make them mad, and it should. But evolution makes them mad, and it shouldn't.
It does. Like Hovind, I wanted to line up a debate with him, so I asked, can we do a evolution versus creationism, so I can ask him some questions. No, he turned it down. Did not want to do creationism at all.
Your question presupposes God. Your question presupposes God.
Yeah.
It's only answered everything.
Your debate.
Broken record.
Well, Mark, my first debate I did with Kent, I chose the topic of the debate, and it was, should evolution be taught in public schools?
Right.
And that
that'll fire a lot of people up.
Well, I was able. I wanted to argue against Kent, his position, and I really wanted to show people that when Kent uses that, because that's his get out of jail free card, whenever anybody challenges his position during a debate, because the debate topics are always evolution on trial, he'll bust that out. Oh, well, I don't have to defend my beliefs because I'm not asking for it to be taught in public schools. The burden of proof is on you, not me.
He 100% wants it in public schools, though.
Well, he wants public schools abolished.
He admitted it in my debate. He was like rubbing it in my face and like bragging about it. Like he said it over and over and over again. That's the funny thing about Kent. So, do you think I should read this last part of the Watchtower thing? Or
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Because
how can I be saved if the Watchtower doesn't tell me what to do?
When I was a kid going to school waiting for the bus, I'd chat with the Watchtower ladies because it was so boring waiting for the bus, and it was always the same thing almost every day. It got boring fast.
I would be so happy if a JW came to my door to talk. I would be so happy, and they never do. They never do. I must be on their watch list or something.
I only ever got Mormons.
I'd go with Mormons. I
did rattle them a bit.
We here in Canada, we get a few Muslims at the doors from time to time, but it's mostly Christians. Never Buddhists, never anybody else.
Okay, so is suffering, is it punishment from God? So the thought that sickness is punishment from God has a long history. The book Manners and Customs of Bible Land says that many in Christ's time believed that sickness was caused by either the sin of the sick person or of his relations, and that it was sent as punishment for that sin. Medieval Medicine and the Plague says that in the Middle Ages, some people believed that God brought plagues to punish them for their sins. So when millions throughout Europe died from the plague in the 14th century, was God executing judgment on wicked people? Some may wonder, does God really use sickness to make people suffer for their sin? Why would Jesus heal people who were sick if sickness and suffering were deserved punishments from God? So the Bible is clear. Jehovah God is never unjust. Okay? For example, God would never cause an airplane disaster, killing hundreds of innocent people because he wanted to punish someone on board. What the Bible teaches us about suffering. The suffering we encounter is not divine punishment for a specific sin. In view of prevailing misconceptions, Jesus' disciples must have been surprised when he told them that neither the man nor the parents had sinned in a way that brought on misfortune. Not only did Jesus cure a man's blindness, but by so doing, he overturned the erroneous belief that suffering is punishment from God. So who is to blame? Why then does mankind experience so much pain and suffering? I'm kind of skipping over some of these sections. Mankind has been pondering that question for centuries. If God is not to blame, who is responsible? The answers to these questions will be discussed in the next article. Okay, so this is what the whole thing is leading up to. Like, it's not very long, but it's what the entire thing is.
It's a cliffhanger.
It's not, really. No, it's in here.
Okay.
This is like the last page.
All right.
And it leads right into the doomsday thing.
I want to know why sort of biblically was sent to make me suffer. That's what I want to know.
Okay, so I'm going to read this whole thing. If suffering is not from God, what accounts for mass starvation, grinding poverty, brutal warfare, crippling diseases, and natural disasters? God's word, the Bible, reveals three main causes for man's suffering. Number one, selfishness, greed, and hatred. Man has dominated man to his harm. People often suffer because they are victimized by imperfect, selfish, or cruel humans. That wasn't really an answer.
Well, that's just bad people doing bad things.
Yeah, but it's still suffering. Like,
Yeah.
you're saying, who's to blame for suffering? Okay. Time and unforeseen events. Humans often suffer because time and unexpected events overtake them. That is, people are simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, accidents occur, or people are careless or make mistakes. Number 3. Okay, this is the big one. The evil ruler of the world. The Bible clearly identifies...
Elon Musk? Oh, sorry.
No.
It's not Trump, fortunately.
It's not Ken Hovind. The whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. That wicked one is Satan, the devil, a powerful spirit creature who was originally an angel of God but did not stand fast in the truth. Other spirit creatures joined Satan and rebelled against God in order to pursue selfish desires, thus making themselves demons. Ever since their rebellion, Satan and his demons have exerted a powerful and cruel influence over this world's affairs. This has been particularly so in our time. Now the devil has great anger and is misleading the entire inhabited earth, which has resulted in woe for the earth. Indeed, Satan is a brutal dictator. He gets perverse satisfaction from human suffering. It is Satan, not God, who causes people to suffer. Consider, only a heartless, diabolical evildoer would cause innocent people to suffer. By contrast, the Bible says God is love. 1 John 4, chapter 4, verse 8. In harmony with his loving personality, it is unthinkable for the true God to act wickedly, for the Almighty to do wrong. However, you may naturally wonder, how long will Almighty God permit Satan to continue his heinous rule? As we have seen, God abhors wickedness, and our suffering causes him great pain. Furthermore, the word urges, throw all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. God loves us and has the power to remove all suffering and injustice, as the following article will explain. And now we're going to find out that God will soon end all our suffering. Okay?
Does it mean that God will pay my mortgage? Because mortgage payments give me anxiety.
You're not going to need to, your mortgage is not going to matter when this happens.
You'll have a mortgage in heaven.
When will God act? Very soon. Very soon. Jesus revealed that a particular generation would witness a unique combination of conditions that would mark the last days of a system of things. The fulfillment of Jesus's prophecy in our day indicates that God's intervention in human affairs is imminent. But how will God put an end to all suffering? When Jesus was on the earth, he demonstrated God's power to alleviate mankind's suffering. Consider some examples of this. While Jesus was sailing on the Sea of Galilee, it was windy and Jesus stopped the wind. Jesus healed blind people. Jesus used his powers to multiply fish and bread. And Jesus brought people back to life. So that's pretty much it. Yeah. The world's going to end soon. So you don't have to worry about suffering or your mortgage.
Well, I mean, it's really weird because his 3 things were like bad people do bad things. Basically, that was one of the reasons, right? Which doesn't address acts of nature like floods or volcanoes,
or why those people are bad,
or why those people are bad. But let's just assume that God wants free will and the most sort of charitable explanation whatsoever. It still doesn't address why. A lightning bolt hits somebody, for instance. That's not bad things. The others were wrong place at the wrong time. How can you have wrong place at the wrong time with an omnipresent God controlling everything?
And who designed everything that way?
Who designed everything and created everything to act in a certain way. You can't have a wrong place at the wrong time. Everything happens according to his plan. That makes literally no sense whatsoever.
Or he's not perfect.
Or he's not perfect, right. And the third one is basically Satan fucks with us. Yeah. That was the third one. Basically, Satan is making these bad things happen. And it goes on for a long time and causes God great pain. But the problem there is the problem of evil. It's if God is more powerful than Satan, and what Satan's doing causes him pain, and he doesn't want him to do it, why doesn't he just stop him?
Well, in the Old Testament, Satan was just a job title.
I'm going to guess that the reason is because Satan's very clever, apparently, has probably read the Bible and knows that all he has to do is ride around an iron chariot and God can't touch him.
Yeah,
well, he is going to stop him very soon.
Very soon. Very soon. Well, and another thing that I noticed is it said only a heartless evildoer would do horrible things like what you're experiencing in your suffering. And I thought, you mean like God in the Old Testament? You mean those kind of heartless evil things that he used to do in the Old Testament? Like commanding villages to be burnt to the ground and everybody killed, and commanding people to sacrifice their children. Like those heartless evil things.
Very soon, Mark.
Very soon.
Yeah.
Very soon. Well, one of the things that always disturbed me as well is that people like, Jesus did all these miracles, and so the big question I have is, Jesus healed lepers, right? Why didn't he just give them antibiotics, like the secret of antibiotics, penicillin basically, which kills the bacteria that causes leprosy? Like, why did he lay hands and do this stuff instead of showing humans how to actually cure us? Because people don't get leprosy anymore, right? When's the last time you heard of a leper? It just doesn't happen because of antibiotics.
Well, it's like teach a man to fish,
Yeah.
But I made a tweet sort of related to that topic, and I was saying, I bet that poor family that Jesus multiplied the fish and loaves of bread for, I bet like 3 weeks later they were like, man, I'm hungry again. Where's Jesus? Like, what happens then? That's what I thought it was funny.
Yeah. So he should have taught them modern agricultural techniques and fishing. Maybe conjure up a fishing rod for them, perhaps.
It looks like our guest is returned to the back room.
Yeah, you're right, Jonah. Leprosy does still exist, but it's easily treatable. Yeah, just with simple antibiotics, absolutely. I would suggest that more people have been saved by antibiotics through the years than Jesus ever did.
If you bring the guest back in, I have a question for them right off the bat.
Okay.
You
guess
want
so.
to bring it back? Are you?
I don't. I was hoping we could watch some more debate stuff.
Yeah, I prefaced that with I wasn't requesting.
Okay.
No, look, Randolph, if you want to still talk to him, I'm more than happy to. I'll just bow out and try and hold my tongue.
No. Don't, please don't put this on me. I was just saying if he gets brought back in, I do question for him. But
well, question presupposes him being brought back in.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, but I'm simply not going to allow him to waste my time. And this is going to be a video on my channel. I'm not going to let him ruin the video. You know what I mean? Like, nobody wants to listen to this guy repeat that same thing 40 times,
Yeah, Randolph, the Watchtower magazine can do that quite well by itself. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I guess everything has a good side, right?
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen in a second. One little second. Okay. So it's not a debate, but I think just for fun, maybe we could take a peek at one of my favorite Kent Hovind videos.
Now we're talking. Well, actually, Kent will be doing the talking.
Yes. Well. Okay.
Your science book? Yes, you are. And so she took a round 2. Now, let me just explain to you, Rachel, what I'm about to do, okay, and sweetly in Christian love, okay? The atheists started this fight. How many saw Karate Kid?
Well, technically, Daniel started the fight.
Finish him! Finish him! They're so anxious. The angry atheists, they're frantic for a knockout. Somebody please shut Hovind up. It's hilarious to read the comments on her YouTube. I don't normally do that, but I got to watch it and read some of the comments. They are so excited that she is attacking me. I'm scared stiff, Rachel. You would not believe. Anyway, I just want to let you know, self-defense is acceptable in nearly every culture. I didn't attack you. You guys took over our school system and want all of us to pay to have your religion being taught. And evolution's a religion. And you're making all of us pay for it. One guy did a website, what's it called? YouTube about Kent Hovind's word. It says our tax dollars shouldn't support, shouldn't teach evolution. And he said, what tax dollars? Hovind, you went to prison for not paying taxes. Well, first place, I went to prison for structuring, okay? Secondly, real estate taxes. Bill, real estate taxes pay for the schools, not income tax. Okay. Stupidity cannot be helped, I don't think. Rachel, when truth is presented about creation and the stupidity of evolution, no can defense. How many saw that scene in the movie? That was classic, wasn't it? Spam, knocked him out cold. Okay, here we go. Fallacy.
It's actually ironic
with
because
Kent
if you
Hovind.
know
I'm
the
going to
kick is
play
coming, you can
her
always defend against it.
video and then interject my comments as needed.
Hi everyone. So in the last video in this series, we talked about making some pretty ridiculous claims about what he thinks evolution is and why it's bad, and then coming up with some really odd, kind of unscientific definitions for a lot of stuff surrounding evolution. If you haven't seen part one, I will link it in the description below and pop it as a pinned comment. I really recommend you go check it out first.
I love the British accent. Okay, thank you. Okay.
It's not quite as science heavy as, like, say, this video is going to be, but it does give you an overview to kind of like some of his views and a little bit about his educational background or lack of it.
His educational background or lack of it. Rachel, it wouldn't matter if I was a kindergarten dropout. Evolution isn't true, okay? That's a rabbit trail, okay, a red herring. If you don't like my educational background, what does that have to do with the debate? This is called an ad hominem.
I'm sorry, what debate? You're not debating Rachel. She did not agree to a debate with you. You were watching her video. So, don't know what he's talking about there.
On an attack.
He may not.
Doesn't matter if I dropped out of kindergarten. I know you guys are desperate, so I understand. So I just want to point that out for the thinking part of this audience, okay?
And why he wrote this book in the first place.
The book, why I wrote the book in the first place. They're getting frantic, folk. I love it, sweetly, in Christian love. Okay.
In this video, we are going to be looking at what Kent describes as the specific lies used to teach evolution in just about every science textbook in the world. So we're getting a little bit more specific in this. We're looking at some of his actual claims and then looking at the actual science that debunks them. He lists a hell of a lot, and I don't think I'm going to be able to cover all of them. I'm just going to cover the kind of like interesting ones, and also the ones that, you know, I actually know enough to talk about. The ones that relate more to kind of like physics and stuff like that, it's not my strong point. It's not something I've studied anywhere past GCSE, to be honest.
Okay, when you're watching this, just keep in mind, compare her modesty about her education and her level of expertise on this topic, and then compare that to what Kent says about himself. So store that away in your short-term memory.
So I think there are better people, more qualified to talk about that stuff.
Well, then, Rachel, tell them to call me. Bring them on. Any field of science, okay? I happen to have taught algebra, geometry, trig, biology, physical science, and earth science, and I'm fairly well versed in most of the sciences and can handle any. Tell you what, get 100 evolutionists on your side. Elijah had 850 against one, didn't he? Get 850 evolutionists, and all of you have a debate against me if I get half the time and we talk about one topic at a time. You get the world's expert on geology and the world's expert on biology. Get all the world's experts together. It's not that I'm smarter than these guys. It's that I'm right and they're wrong. God.
I mean, I feel like there's not a more perfect example of Kent Hovind's Dunning-Kruger level of massive narcissistic ego. I mean, he literally said, get all of the world's experts together on geology and biology, and all of them are wrong. So Kent is right, and every single one of the world's experts on biology and geology is wrong when they say that the geologic column exists and that evolution is true. But it's not that he's smart. It's not that I'm smarter than them. Okay, it's not that I'm smarter than them. It's just that they're dumb.
It's ironic. He kept saying she was desperate, but he came across a lot more desperate, I think.
Yeah, he thinks pretty highly of himself.
Well, he's desperate to impress Rachel.
Well, narcissism ultimately covers insecurity, so.
Yeah, I've seen this video many times before because it always makes me laugh. I will say Rachel has her makeup is beautiful. You know, it's just so terrible to see. She's literally half his age. It's just terrible to see this man talking about her in such a way. And he opens the video by framing the debate in a metaphor where he kicks her in the face and knocks her unconscious like the Karate Kid, because he is the main character of the movie in his analogy, of course.
And this whole thing about his taxes kind of thing. Now, structuring, for those who don't know and haven't heard yet, because it's sort of been out there for a while, it's basically making withdrawals from an account or having income come in that you have set up to be below a certain threshold, so you don't have to pay tax on that amount. So if the tax gets applied at like 10,000 at a higher rate,
that's not quite accurate.
Well, that's what I thought it was. I mean,
well, it's doing that. It's like basically, I don't know if they've changed the amount recently, but anything over any like deposit or withdrawal in a bank in America over $10,000 is automatically reported to the government. So you deposit or withdraw just under that, so it's not reported.
Yeah,
and then you can evade the tax on it.
It's reported the same amount here in Canada too.
Now that was not the only thing he was convicted on, so he's lying about that.
I was going to get onto that he didn't pay tax on his staff kind of thing, because he was kind of trying to say, hey, we're a religious organization, therefore we shouldn't be taxed on, you know, the payments he was making. But he wasn't registered as a religious organization, and he was running a theme park, not a church.
Even churches have to pay like Social Security for their salaried employees, but he was saying, well, they're not my employees, they're God's employees.
Yeah, he said they're missionaries. But yeah, Mark, you were not that far off in your definition, because they will notify the IRS. It's sort of so they can keep track of large deposits moving through the different banking systems and sort of see where they go based on the locations of the banks that are reporting. They can kind of follow the trail of the money. But when I got my last car, not the one I have now, but the one before it, my mom, she took out a large amount of money to just pay for the car in a lump sum. It was a used car, and it was over 10,000. And so they notified the IRS, but doing that also put us at a higher tax bracket.
Right.
So,
and I guess what I want to point out is, though he says it wasn't tax evasion, structuring is a form of tax evasion, as well as not paying your staff tax kind of thing. That is a form of tax evasion. Mm-hmm. He absolutely arrested and convicted for tax evasion.
Well, I mean, it's very dishonest, because if he wants to say, like, I didn't go to jail for tax evasion, I guess you could say that's technically true, but only because he didn't get caught, or he didn't go to jail for not paying income tax. He still avoided paying income tax. He just didn't go to jail for that. He went to jail for a slightly different thing that you would probably call tax fraud, and instead of maybe tax evasion, as if it really matters. Like the distinction is not that important. And Kent Hovind never cares about distinctions or the nuance. He always like overgeneralizes everything. So I don't know why he cares so much about this, you know?
Made the world. Okay, it's not complicated, Rachel. Okay, so you
And
go ahead.
honestly,
get over
honestly,
it
it's super
together,
creepy to
call
hear
me
him talk about
855 Big
kicking
Guy.
people in the face, given his subsequent behavior.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. You know, and he has used that kind of language on AJ as well, sort of, you know, stay down kind of thing, and I'm going to do this and that. It really is, in the current light of what you're facing, I would be less aggressive with your language as it pertains to physical.
That's who he is.
He said he would body slam me.
Right.
Also. So, I mean, he just flat out said it. You know, I'd like to see Kent try, but okay.
I know extension 2 for the secretary, extension 1 to order my videos, and extension 3 to talk to me. Maybe I get 8 million phone calls a day, but I'll try to answer. Okay,
probably
need. So I'm going to be leaving those and talking about the ones that I do know about. You know, because I think that's going to lead to a more entertaining video. It's going to lead to a more accurate video. It's just going to be better all around. You know.
I hope this is entertaining and accurate, Rachel. See. We got boot camp coming up in a couple of days, and I was frantic. I've been working on so many things. I didn't have time to get really ready for Bible study stuff like I'd like to. And someone showed me your video. I said, this will be easy. Whoa, no prep. Here we go. Okay.
That said, the first thing we're going to look at is centered around geology. And again, I haven't touched this since I was about 16. So talking a good decade now. That's a lie. Obviously, I have an interest in it. I read a lot of books on the topic, but I've not
Mark, have you seen Kent's new debate against David Emery?
No, but I'd like to ask, what the hell is boot camp? Does anybody know what he's talking about? I presume it's like the exercise thing that you go to.
It's just a week of special videos he does each year where he has some guest speakers travel to DAL and give talks, and they're themed in like a boot camp thing, like, oh, this is boot camp. There's a war going on between Christians and God. You need to get out there, and if you can't shoot, then pay for the bullets. You know, go out and shoot a teacher who's teaching evolution.
Okay.
I mean, that's the implication that I get, you know.
Pretty lame then. All right, yeah, cool. No, I haven't seen that video. I do want to watch it after you told me about it, but I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, well, I will I will switch over to that one. I just love I love seeing Kent say that he is right and every expert in the world is wrong. I just think that's funny.
Where do you think that accent from? He was hassling an accent, and you know, it was kind of an unusual English accent. I think it was probably Merseyside or somewhere like that.
Well,
my wife could probably pick it, but
yeah, and Rachel, she admits that she grew up in a low income area. So the school that she went to, it was not the type of school where they teach you like received pronunciation or learned pronunciation. You know what I'm talking about? So that's why she's got a kind of, I don't know, Cockney or whatever they call it accent, or you know, I don't know if they have different accents based on class in England. That's something I've heard, but you know, richer people who go to private schools, they learn like received pronunciation and they talk in a fancier way. But I don't know. She's talked about it in a video, but I don't know all that stuff. You know, I just know about America.
Yep. Yeah, we had you started with your opening statement, then Kent went, and then David, you got 8-minute rebuttal, and then Kent got an 8-minute rebuttal. Okay. So what we'll do now that we got openings and rebuttals out of the way is we'll get into a free-flowing discussion. Let's try and ask each other questions and discuss each topic and point. So since Kent just ended, David, we'll let you choose the first topic to discuss for the discussion portion. Go ahead.
Well, let me cover just a couple of things here. I know I'll get shot down for it, but those horse kinds that Todd mentioned are exactly related to each other, and that's why he said that. They are related. You can see it in the skeletons, that they have similar ankle and foot bones, similar skulls, similar teeth. The teeth, and they show a progression from one to the other. I would challenge you to give me the reference where modern horses are buried in layers below Eohippus or Hipparchus, because I would like to see that. So please find your reference where you say modern horses are buried in layers below these other animals, and I'll retract my statement. But I don't think you have seen that anywhere, and you're so quick to say that's not science, but you don't know how science is done. You don't know what those scientists go through to prove that those are related to each other. For one thing, on the top of Mount Everest, there are no clams on the top of Mount Everest. None. There are.
Oh, David, I'm going to stop you there
organisms.
because since it's a discussion, I just want to be fair to the both of you. So so we'll stick to one topic on the horse evolution topic, and then we can certainly go to the clams topic after David. Go ahead, Kent. Take as much time as you need.
All right, let's stick on the horse evolution. This is the same picture you used, only in color. This is what's in typical textbooks. It seems to be cutting off my slides on part of your screen. Is that you? Something's wrong with the slides. Okay, there we go.
You're good now, Kent.
All right. The Eohippus is not a horse. It's a hyrax. It's still alive today. It has 18 pairs of ribs. The next one you have in your sequence there has 15 pairs of ribs. How did this animal go from 18 pairs of ribs to 15 pairs of ribs? Do you think these are related? Then you go to 19 pairs of ribs, and then to 18 today. Some Arabians have 19. Okay. Putting these animals side by side and claiming they're related is not observable science. The first one has a four-toed foot. The horses have a hoof. Do you believe this is accurate representation of how the horse evolved? They show this in the textbooks. Like 60 million years ago, the Hyracotherum evolved into something else.
I mean, isn't a hoof really just the same thing as a toe? It's ridiculous, you know? It's just like it's like the horse with a hoof is just sort of standing on its tippy toes, you know? I mean, ridiculous.
That's my point is they're wrong if they believe that. Nobody's ever seen a horse with 15 pairs of ribs turn into anything else. How's it going to grow this extra ribs or lose the rib?
How quick did Donnie jump in when he brought up something not to do with evolution? And Kent brings up all kinds of crap. Like,
that's going to be a running theme in this video.
Really?
Yes. And of course, Kent, evolution does not talk about one horse with 18 pairs of ribs having to lose 3 ribs. Okay, these are populations of animals that very slowly over time change, and there are pigs today that can be born with different rib counts. There are animals that can be born with different rib counts. It's not that crazy, you know. Somebody who's a human being who is a basketball player, and like Yao Ming probably has more ribs than somebody who is 4'8".
Kent just said there are some Arabian horses with 19 ribs. 19 pairs of ribs. So how did that happen then, Ken?
Yeah.
There's a lot of muscle, a lot of nerve, a lot of stuff going on with any part of the body. You don't just take one part out or add one part like that. Just because they put them on side by side on a piece of paper doesn't mean anything to anybody with a brain in their head. I could put a marble next to a bowling ball, next to a space shuttle, and that would prove they're related. That's the logic you guys use. I'm sorry, the horse evolution isn't true. So go ahead.
Once again, you need to show me a reference of all these different, how they got more ribs, less ribs, more ribs, less ribs. That's not the way it would work. I'm quite certain it's not like that. If you have a reference that shows that, then I will retract my statement. And
okay.
So on back to clams, there are no clams on Mount Everest. And I checked with 4 or 5 references. They were all chefs that show people how to cook clams. And they said, if you wash them in the water and they're closed, that means they're dead. Throw them away. The ones that are alive will be open just a little bit, and they will move if you touch them. So the ones that are closed are already dead. And you keep saying over and over and over in 300 debates, you've said it was in the closed position. Well, the closed position means it's dead. And clams are not on Mount Everest. So try not to keep harping on that all the time.
Okay. That one topic there, Donnie?
Yep. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah. Okay. I will definitely find some references on that. Have you ever walked along the beach and you find seashells by the millions? They are not closed. They're open, and somebody eats what's inside of them. The muscle is pulling them together. When the muscle relaxes, they fall apart, and they open it up to eat. I agree. But when a clam is closed, it's got the muscle in there pulling the shells together. I'm sorry, you are wrong, but I'll find the references on that. As far as the top of Mount Everest, I have pictures from several textbooks. I can't find them quickly here, where they talk about Edmund Hillary, when he got to the top of Mount Everest, found him planting a flag on top of clams. What he said, Edmund Hillary, but I'll find the reference. I understand that's important. Yeah, I'd like you to show me the reference of any animal producing a different kind of animal. Show me the reference of a horse with 18 ribs producing one with 15, or one with 15 producing one with 19. How can this happen?
No.
You can put them side by side on paper.
Keep in mind, when Ken Owen says produce, I asked him this specifically in my debate, and Kent laughed at me as if it was a ridiculous question, and SFT's commenters thought it was so funny, but Kent says, I asked, does that mean give birth? And he said yes. So Ken Hovind is saying evolution is not true because nobody's ever seen a horse with 18 ribs give birth to one with 15 ribs.
Right.
But he'll deny later in the debate, he'll deny that he said something like this. He'll deny that he's claiming evolution says an amoeba gave birth to a cow, you know? But that's exactly what he says, you know?
Paper, but that's not science.
First of all, you have to show me how it does that, because you're the one that claims all those rib changes. So you're going to have to give me a reference on the number of ribs all these animals had.
Okay, fair question. Let's see. I will look that up here.
Wish I could remember all the points you had. I guess I'm finished for now.
Okay. Not only are the ribs different on these ones, just because they lined them up because they think they want to go in that order, the ribs are different. The toes are certainly different. Would you agree?
It's not because they wanted them in that order. That's the order that they were found in the stratigraphic layers.
Yeah, Theology. But you can't bring that up to him because he doesn't believe in stratigraphic layers either. So,
yeah, Donnie wants me to do a debate with Kent on does the geologic column exist? I told him I won't do it because that's a waste of time. And no matter what I say, Kent Hovind is just going to say, well, if you think all these the top layer is younger, where did it come from? Outer space?
Do you know Beamsy? He's a geologist. You should put his name forward.
I said that Big Bad Mama should debate Kent on that because I believe they have a background in geology, and I just think, yeah, I would love to see that because they asked Kent such great questions. You know, one of the questions I saw recently, what they asked, or somebody asked Kent, was, why is it that we see strata on other planets if there was no flood? Noah's flood wasn't on those planets. I was like, that is an incredibly good question.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree.
And he just said, I don't know if it's been proven that there's strata on other planets, you know? Okay, Ken. Okay.
Buy my DVDs.
Buy my DVDs. You know, it's $50 for the whole thing, or you can buy a set of 10 of them for $300 and pass them out as Christmas presents. You know, put anthrax in them and mail them to people.
Blu-ray. Never heard of Blu-ray. What is that?
I don't know. I don't know about Blu-ray.
Kids have new things called Blu-ray. Okay.
It sounds like blue gay. I don't like that.
I don't like that, Rob. Yeah.
That the Hyracotherium has 4 toes and does not have a hoof?
I agree that it has 4 toes, but if you look at that picture, the 3 of those toes don't touch the ground. It's beginning to evolve into a 1-hoof animal.
This is what you believe. Show me this happening. How did it go?
Look on your picture there.
Oh, there we go. So you know that animal walked without all 4 toes touching the ground. Is that what you're saying? You know that?
Yes, I know that for sure from looking at that foot. Just like I can look at your toes, your shoes, and tell how you walk on your feet. If you're walking on toes or your heels, or
I really like that answer. You know, I think that's a great answer. And Kent is the one claiming that they have this many toes, and that they, you know, like you're.
I mean, they can tell a lot about how animals walk from their bone structure. I mean, come on, Kent. This isn't rocket science. We can tell, like, you know, whether apes were knuckle draggers or whether animals could climb and things like that just from their physiology. Come on, Kent. This isn't like, why does he have to die on this hill? I don't understand.
I don't know, man.
I can look at that and tell.
Okay. The teeth of these animals is different. The skull shapes are different.
No.
Here's the reference. Right here. You asked for a reference. Modern horses are found in layers with and lower than ancient horses. This is from Pravda in Moscow, translated back in 1984. A horse from the dinosaur epic was the name of.
So a Russian propaganda newspaper from the 80s is your source? I mean, Moscow Truth from 1984?
That's a weird reference, right?
Yes. I mean, how this is a scientific source?
No, absolutely.
Fire, at least it's more recognized.
And modern horses are found in the same layers as ancient ones?
And lower than ancient horses. What the hell?
So it's like you have anything to back that up, or you're just quoting a rag from the Cold War?
Yeah.
Wow.
For the article in Russian. See if you can copy that and find it. This was the article where they said modern horses were found in layers with and lower than ancient horses.
See if you can find
interesting.
I can't find. Who is translating?
Noah to Abram right here on.
Wait a minute, Kent. Wait a minute. Hold the phone. Modern horses are found in layers with and lower than ancient horses?
Yeah.
Are you implying those lower layers are older, Kent Hovind? Why would that be significant, Kent? I thought all the layers were the same age. So why does your slide say that modern horses were found in layers lower than horses that are considered to be ancient? I mean, this is a total contradiction. Not to mention the fact that yeah, go ahead.
This is acknowledging those geological layers exist.
Right. Did I tell you my well, I think you saw the stream where I was talking about how I feel like, Kent always says that the layers are the same age, but then he makes the argument that all the layers were laid down horizontally instead of vertically. And I was saying that, is the fact that Kent Hovind makes that argument, I know Randolph saw this, is the fact that Kent makes that argument proof that he knows that the law of superposition is true? Because if he didn't care about that, he would just say, yeah, the layers were formed vertically one by one, but they're still the same age because, the top layer isn't younger. They're all the material, why would he argue that the layers formed horizontally, which, is not something that we see? And if it is, it's very rare. It for sure is not how most of the geologic column formed. I mean, it just doesn't make sense for it to form horizontally. It makes no sense, because that's like saying basically that you had all of the layers on Earth basically formed, and then they go horizontally. Like, that makes no sense. How would that even happen? I can't even visualize it.
So it looks like he's gotten this off the Center for Scientific Creation. They claim in Uzbekistan, 86 consecutive horse hoof prints were found, supposedly 90 to 100 million year old dinosaur tracks. Horses allegedly did not evolve until millions of years after the dinosaurs became extinct. But yeah, that seems the only reference to it that I can find is in the Center for Scientific Creation. And they're referencing some random Moscow propaganda magazine from 1984. But I mean, the references in here are absolute crap. Like,
yep.
The Cold War one, that's just so funny.
Horses. Interesting. This
Take care.
book, Noah to Abram, right here on my shelf.
Thanks for the
turbulent years.
Yep. See you later, Randolph.
Talks about they're never found in the order presented. So there's a reference. The guy said it in his book. And 3-toed and 1-toed horses graze side by side. Why did Tulsa Zoo remove their display?
Did he see those horses grazing side by side?
Did what now?
Did he see those horses grazing side by side?
Did you see any animal turn into a different kind of animal?
No.
Bro, this is a dodge. This is such a dodge. Donnie, sitting for lies. What are you doing? How can you let Kent dodge the question like this? That's nonsense. Okay? But credit to David Emery. He was a lot more aggressive in this debate.
Yeah, absolutely. His first one, he seemed really flustered and sort of didn't know what to do. I think he sort of, he's improved so much. I really want to commend him. Absolutely.
Yes.
Press him more. Say that's a dodge and answer the question that I posed to you.
Exactly. It seems obvious that, he is older. He has some trouble, speaking really quickly. And it's already tough debating Kent. I know you can be nervous. So, but he really has improved here. And I was really surprised at how good I thought he did. I just love to see somebody not back down from Kent and to call him out in these situations. You know what I mean? Don't let him intimidate you.
Oh, I'm asking you. You just said He saw them grazing side by side. So did he see those doing that, or is that just written in that book?
By the evolutionist logic, if you find the fossils of both of them in the same layer at the same location, you would say they live together and graze together. That's common sense. I'll do some more checking on that since you'd like more references. But changing from even changing from a four-toed horse to a one-toed horse, like you guys imagine, that's losing, not gaining. That's not improvement.
Yes,
that's losing information.
No,
and it's not science.
No, it's gaining. It's gaining the ability to ambulate or move better in your environment. That's because they were living in the open fields. They didn't need the same amount of stability, and a hoof is a massive improvement.
But that doesn't, even if that's true, it doesn't really matter, because it doesn't matter if it's losing something or gaining something. Right. It's not like evolution is going backwards. And evolution is not only about getting better. It's just that changes happen, and sometimes the changes are advantageous and help you adapt your environment. Sometimes they do nothing, and then sometimes they make you less fit, But
like, for instance, dolphins and whales losing their rear legs, kind of thing. It makes perfect sense, and it's not, you're losing information. No, you're just adapting. You're evolving to suit your environment. They don't need the legs. But again, Hovind doesn't understand evolution.
Yeah, and it's not even really that the dolphins have lost that information. It's simply that the genes for those bottom feet or bottom flippers are turned off, because we see some dolphins born with something called an atavism, where they have vestigial small versions of those bottom legs or bottom flippers there when they're not supposed to. It's the same thing when humans have a vestigial tail.
Yeah.
It's an atavism. So the genetic information is still there, but it was just turned off.
It's not observable science. They put them going smaller to bigger. You don't know that.
It's gaining function because it's able to run faster. It doesn't have to worry about those toes being caught up on things. A single-toed horse can outrun any two-toed cow anywhere.
Well, cows are not designed to run, period, like that. But I think there's quite a few animals that, like monkeys, they have toes. Do they run pretty fast?
Yeah, I think they do through the trees.
Right.
The other thing
I'm
thought
lost
of,
on the logic. The point is, science is
what the hell was his point with the monkeys? What was
I
even
have
his
no
point?
idea.
All this other animal has toes and they can run fast. Okay. So what?
Monkeys generally don't live on like open plains kind of thing. Maybe baboons do, and maybe that's his point.
I mean, Lucy did. I mean, Lucy was both tree dwelling and also walked around on the ground. If she was walking on the ground to maybe hunt for fruit that had fallen from a tree, or small animals that had died or that she could kill to eat. And if she sees a big predator chasing her, she could run up the tree. So that's, something that would help her fitness as well. But I mean, yeah, most of the time, chimps don't have toes like we do, because they aren't really able to walk upright for long periods of time. It's uncomfortable for them.
what we can study, observe, test, and demonstrate. Nobody's ever observed any animal produce something that anybody would consider, oh, wow, that's a brand new kind. You might call it a new species, like the Kaibab squirrel and the Abert squirrel are now considered their species. They're still a squirrel. They can still mate.
Do you want to take this one?
Well, it's interesting because I was actually doing some research on Google, and I was trying to find a good, solid scientific source that said if you got these two squirrels together in the lab, they could not breed because of their genetics. We know that they don't breed because they've been separated by the Grand Canyon for about 10,000 years. But I couldn't find a one source that specifically said that they would be unable to interbreed where they've actually tried it. However, they are an example of ring species, and in ring species, you absolutely can get two populations where they can no longer interbreed with each other. And like one of the populations can interbreed with all of the other previous populations, but you get to a certain point where now they've become different enough that they cannot interbreed. And since these two squirrel populations have been separated for so long, I would say that it's highly unlikely that they would be interfertile. I mean, the Grand Canyon separated them like 10,000 years ago. So they've just been interbreeding within themselves for so many generations that it doesn't make any sense that they could get together and breed. I would also like Kent to demonstrate this claim. What's his evidence of this? Did Kent see this happening? Did he see it? Did he observe it? Have we observed this, Kent? Because if not, it's not science. So I think Kent's just lying on this. He's been saying this ever since the debate where I brought it up. And I swear I've seen Kent say before that they can't interbreed. I've been trying to find that clip, but yeah, this is just wrong.
Yep. I don't know, but whoever debates Kent next, and I don't know if it'll be me or I don't know who it is. I haven't heard back from Donnie. I think that Kent may not want to debate me anymore, which is kind of understandable. But someone's got to pin him down on kind, because he basically says it's when two animals can interbreed. Basically, the problem with that is you have things like horses and donkeys producing mules. Now, the mules are almost always infertile. So if something can bring forth after its kind, and then its offspring are infertile, then that offspring can't bring forth after its kind. So that would mean that the offspring isn't the same kind as the parent. And this is why it's so messed up. There's so many contradictions with it. Like, eagles are kind. And if sort of a golden eagle has way different chromosomes than a bald eagle, so they should be the same kind, but there's no way they can interbreed because of the chromosomal difference. So someone's got to pin him down with a few examples and say, hey, are these the same kind? And if so, why can't they breed? And if they aren't the same kind, then what are we talking about for kind here? Because there's a lot of animals that he'll say, hey, these are a certain kind, like eagles or penguins or something like that have a lot of very, very different members of the population within certain species in that kind that there's no way they can interbreed. Like, just the genetics would make it ridiculous. Why aren't they the same? How can they possibly be the same kind if all that's required is you bring forth after your kind? I would love to pin him down on how we figure out whether the golden eagle and the wedge-tail eagle, say the one in Australia, the wedge-tail eagle, are the same kind or not. Because there's no way they can breed. Their chromosome difference, it's just not possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that I did pretty good at that with my squirrel diagram, if you remember that in my last debate with Kent. And Kent and you we don't even have to be talking about the Kaibab neighborhood squirrel. I specifically asked Kent, do you think it's possible that you can have these two populations of squirrels that can't interbreed anymore? You know what I mean? And I went on to the next and the next and the next. And but he said, so they can't interbreed. So they're not the same kind, but they're still squirrels. So they're the same kind. And I was telling Kent, I was like, that's a double standard. That's contradictory. And he just didn't care. Well, they're still squirrels. Yeah, but they can't bring forth. Well, yeah, but they're still squirrels. They're still hovens. Well, I'm gonna have to wrap up the stream here in a few minutes, Mark. So, do you have anything coming up on your channel that you have planned, or more debates, or more open mics or anything?
I was going to be setting something up on Debate Cafe with apparently a guy called Jill, who's got a bit of a reputation for being a bit spicy. I don't know whether that's going forward. He's sort of adding conditions and now wants to do a 2-on-2 kind of thing. He's just being very, very problematic. So I don't know whether that's going to go forth or not. But that's okay. I don't really have much coming up. I might try to get out a video tomorrow on sort of a questions from a theist to atheist and see if I can do something like that. But I'm always up to something sometime in the week. So if you are interested in debates and people talking about theology, morality, evolution, things like that, come over and check me out. I hope you can find something there for you.
Awesome. Well, we've got about 51 people watching in live chat. So thank you guys for tuning in. It's really awesome. And this was fun. I haven't done one of these in a long time, but I think it was definitely fun. So I'll be leaving this replay up on my channel because I think people could enjoy it. I'm just glad that I kicked out that ultimatum Christian guy, but it was fun for a little bit. But
you had fun, admit it. You had a little bit of fun.
I had fun, but I just wasn't gonna let him keep going because I knew what he was gonna say, and it just I want people to actually watch my videos, not turn them off.
Well, as soon as it gets to the point where someone starts telling you what you believe and know, it's kind of, where can you go from there? It's so strange to be told what you think. And okay, you want to believe that? You can believe that. I'll just live my life now, not believing in God, have fun. But yeah, AJ, fantastic. I had a blast. Thank you so much for inviting me. This was a lot of fun. And I'd love to do it again sometime if you want. I had a blast.
Yeah, definitely. Although I have to say, and I didn't want to jinx it earlier, but I am surprised that Otangelo didn't show up, I have to say.
Otangelo avoids me. It might be me. He really does avoid me.
Not even in the side chat?
Yeah, he kind of doesn't even like me there because I will respond directly to him and basically tell him that he's he cherry picks from papers, and then I look up the papers and they say something different, and I'll copy and paste what it says in there, and he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it when people show that the paper that he's quoting directly from disagrees with him. He doesn't like that. So if you do want to make Otangelo mad, look up the paper. If you do have an educational institution, access is usually best. Look up the paper, find where it directly contradicts him, and then paste that in with the reference. He will leave. He will go.
Yeah. That's awesome. Alrighty. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna end the stream now, but thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll just see y'all in the next video. So peace out.
AJ, and thank you, everybody.